Chapter 552. Mu Wanqing didn't expect that the moment she spoke, the entire crowd would quiet down. She couldn't help but raise the sleeve, dart on her wrist guiltily. "What are you looking at? If you keep looking, I won't be polite." Threatened by her, the surrounding people hurriedly turned their heads and continued chatting. However, everyone's ears were perked up, clearly waiting to hear what she would ask next. Why would Miss ask about Golden Snake Camp? Hearing her question, Song Qing-shu was slightly taken aback, but he was not in a hurry to answer. He calmly picked up a glass of wine and took a sip. "Why do you care?" Mu Wanqing glared at him impatiently. "Do you know or not? That would depend on Miss' purpose in finding the Golden Snake Camp. If it is to seek revenge, then forgive me for not knowing. If it is to visit a friend, then I do know a thing or two." Song Qing-shu replied, "Neither too fast nor too slow." "What nonsense are you talking about? Is there any difference?" Mu Wanqing frowned. "Of course there's a difference." Song Qing-shu smiled slightly. "Golden Snake Camp's reputation is like the sun in the sky now. The new Golden Snake King Song Qing-shu is even more elegant, handsome, and elegant. At the same time, he has matchless martial arts, can call the wind and summon the rain, taking a person's chastity from 1,000 miles away. Pay, this doesn't count. If Miss is seeking revenge, you definitely won't be able to return. I don't want to see such a beautiful woman die, so of course I don't know." Song Qing-shu praised himself to the skies in front of everyone without any sense of shame. Anyway, he was wearing a mask, and no one would recognize him. He didn't feel anything, but it made the others in the field feel disgusted. Everyone cursed in their hearts. Hey, they had never seen such a shameless flatterer. If this kind of scholar became an official, he would definitely be a flatterer. If he was praising someone else, there would have long been people who would be angry and teach this flatterer a lesson. But he was praising Song Qing-shu, who was recently like the sun in the sky. A group of people didn't dare to take the risk of offending Golden Snake Camp to teach him a lesson. He's not as good as you say." Hearing the man in front of her praise Song Qing-shu, Mu Wanqing frowned, but she didn't know why, but she was actually happy in her heart. Unwittingly, he thought of all the times they had spent together in the past, and for a moment, he couldn't help but feel a little dazed. Mu Wanqing was a rare beauty in the world. There was a trace of shyness on her face, which made her look even more tender and beautiful. Even Song Qing-shu was momentarily dazed when he saw her, not to mention the other men in the room. I've long heard that Song Qing-shu is exceptionally dissolute and is surrounded by peerless beauties. I didn't believe in the past, but now there's actually such a beautiful lady running all the way to find him. Sigh, if I could hug such a beauty to sleep for a night, it would be worth it to lose 10 years of my life. Hey, why don't you measure yourself first? You actually dared to snatch the Golden Snake King's woman. The group of men were fantasizing in their hearts. Friends who were familiar with each other could even use their eyes to communicate their thoughts. What an exceptional beauty! Li Macho glanced at them intentionally or unintentionally, and her heart couldn't help but be filled with emotion. She couldn't be more familiar with Mu Wanqing's expression. Once upon a time, she was also such a shy girl. "Little Lin, you're not allowed to look at her." On the other side, Yuling Shan's unhappy voice suddenly sounded. "I didn't." Yuling Shan's voice wasn't soft. Lin Pingji's handsome face suddenly turned red, and he said with extreme embarrassment, "Obviously I did." Yuling Shan immediately turned her head, and it was obvious that she was extremely angry. Lin Pingji had a face of being wronged. He only glanced at her by chance, but he knew that his senior sister was very jealous. Moreover, that kind of thing had just happened, so it was normal for her to be unhappy. He could only endure his temper and comfort her. Seeing everyone's reaction, Song Qing-shu even had a trace of pride. He couldn't help but smile and said, "Miss, could it be that you're going to find that indomitable great hero, Song Qing-shu?" "Who said I'm going to find him?" Hearing his ambiguous tone, Mu Wanqing immediately became angry. She suddenly pulled out the long sword in her hand and slashed it on the table. "I'm going to kill him." Song Qing-shu was startled. He didn't expect this answer. He immediately woke up from his narcissistic infatuation and silently comforted himself. She must be like this because love turned to hate. She was a little girl, so it was normal for her to have a little temper. Do you know where he is? Seeing that Song Qing-shu didn't answer, Mu Wanqing immediately became angry. Before Song Qing-shu could answer, an extremely annoying voice sounded in his ears. Little girl, this kind of rich young master, how could he understand the matters of our Jianghu? If you want to find Song Qing-shu, then come with me. Song Qing-shu frowned and looked over. He saw that the person who spoke was wearing a bamboo hat. He was tall and thin and had a pair of narrow eyes, which made people feel very uncomfortable. Who is this person? Song Qing-shu filtered through his mind and confirmed that he had never seen this person before. Suddenly being disturbed, Mu Wanqing was in a bad mood. She couldn't help but glare at him. And who are you? Little girl, you don't need to know who I am. I just heard that you want to kill Song Qing-shu, so I have something to tell you, the tall and thin man said with a chuckle. Mu Wanqing felt very uncomfortable by his gaze and couldn't help but frown. What do you want to say? The tall and thin man walked over, looked Mu Wanqing up and down, and couldn't help but shake his head. Miss, your martial arts are considered not bad at this age, but compared to Song Qing-shu, you're still a long way off. If you want to kill him, you won't be able to even if you train for a lifetime. Then what do you think I should do? Mu Wanqing's tone was emotionless. The tall and thin man smiled wretchedly. Miss, you can worship me as your master. I'll teach you a few moves, and I guarantee that you'll get what you want. As soon as he said this, there was an uproar in the restaurant. Who exactly was this person? He didn't look good, but he talked so big. Do you also want to kill Song Qing-shu? Mu Wanqing slightly lowered her head, and her eyelashes trembled slightly. For a moment, her expression couldn't be seen. I, the Owl of Qinghai, have long wanted to teach Song Qing-shu a lesson. The tall and thin man snorted confidently. The Owl of Qinghai. The people in the inn immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. This person was a famous expert in the underworld. These years, his reputation had been very bad. Unfortunately, his whereabouts had always been mysterious, and his martial arts were extremely high. Therefore, no one could do anything to him, even though he had been unhindered in the underworld for more than 10 years. Big words. Suddenly, a light laugh came from his side. What did you say? The Owl of Qinghai suddenly turned his head to look at Li Macho, who was at the side. He saw that she was leisurely sipping her tea, as if she didn't take what had just been said to heart. At the same time, Mu Wanqing snorted coldly. That person can only be killed by me. Those who want to harm him, go die. As soon as she finished speaking, she raised her hand and shot a sleeve dart at the Owl of Qinghai. End of this chapter. Chapter 553. Qinghai Owl never expected that Mu Wanqing would suddenly make a move. Fortunately, he had been in the evil path for many years and was very experienced in facing enemies. Even though he was caught unprepared, he still narrowly dodged the attack. Looking at the big cut on his chest, Qinghai Owl knew that if he hadn't dodged fast enough, he would have failed miserably just now. He couldn't help but be furious. Bitch! He pulled out his long sword and stabbed Mu Wanqing. Mu Wanqing snorted and fearlessly raised her sword to meet his attack. She had made the first move and now had the upper hand. Although her opponent's martial arts were higher than hers, she couldn't gain the upper hand for a while. Song Qing-shu saw that the two were evenly matched and Mu Wanqing was not in danger for a while, so he didn't help. He was wondering who this Qinghai Owl was. After thinking for a long time, he finally remembered who this Qinghai Owl was. In the original book of the Smiling, Proud Wanderer, Zhuolengchan wanted to unite the 5 great sections. Of course, the other sects were not willing, so Zhuolengchan used all kinds of means to force the other 4 sects to submit. One of the means to deal with the Taishan sect was that the evil path's master, Qinghai Owl, suddenly launched a sneak attack. He restrained the head of the Taishan sect, Tianmin Taoist, and forced him to resign from the position of the head. Who knew that Tianmin Taoist was so unyielding that he broke his own meridians in order to open his acupoints. Qinghai Owl was caught off guard and was dragged into death by him. now that the Huashan sect and Qinghai Owl have appeared here one after another? Could it be that Zhuolengchan is making a move? Song Qingshu was secretly shocked. Since he defeated Zhuolengchan on Taishan, they were destined to be unable to be friends. Not long ago, Zhuolengchan also sent people to seize the throne of the new Golden Snake King, but who knew that he was robbed by him? He must hate me to the bone. According to various intelligence reports, Zhuolengchan had been recruiting people these years. The Song Mountain sect had more than 10,000 disciples, and he was also recruiting underworld masters. It seemed that his ambition was not just to be the leader of the Jianghu. The Golden Snake Camp was located in Shandong, while the Song Mountain sect was located in Hunan. They were not far from each other. With the recent rapid expansion of the Golden Snake Camp's influence, it was inevitable that there would be a conflict of interest with the Song Mountain sect. As the saying goes, a mountain cannot accommodate two tigers. Sooner or later, the conflict between the Golden Snake Camp and the Song Mountain sect would come to an end. Song Qingshu pondered for a while. Mu Wanqing gradually fell into a disadvantageous situation. Even though her martial arts skill could be considered passable among the young girls, but in the face of the Qinghai Yi Xiao, this kind of evil devil, naturally it was not enough. After the initial confusion, Qinghai's owl gradually took control of the battle situation. Looking at the sparkling and translucent sweat seeping out of Mu Wanqing's forehead and her pink cheeks, it was truly magnificent. Qinghai's owl's heart couldn't help but heat up. He thought to himself, I haven't encountered such a beautiful woman for a long time. I can finally enjoy myself to my heart's content today. Mu Wanqing screamed. It turned out that when she was dodging, she accidentally tripped over the leg of the table. She staggered and fell directly into Song Qingshu's arms. Miss, I will be embarrassed if you are so enthusiastic. With a warm and fragrant body in his arms, Song Qingshu was slightly startled. He couldn't help but tease her. His fingers quietly and lightly pressed the end of Mu Wanqing's sword hilt. Qinghai's owl was about to follow up with another attack to restrain this shrewish, beautiful girl. Who would have thought that the opponent's long sword would unknowingly be raised a little? If he continued to attack, he would collide with the tip of the sword. Qinghai's owl shouted loudly. As if he had seen a ghost, he hastily withdrew his attack and dodged to the side. He was bewildered as he looked at the two people who were hugging each other. A cold snort came from the side. Qinghai's owl, you are an expert who has been famous for decades, yet you don't care about your status and bully a little girl. Do you still want to be a busybody? Qinghai's owl suddenly turned around and looked at Limacho, who was leisurely sipping her tea. He said in a deep voice, Scarlet Serpent Deity, you and I have always minded our own business. Do you really want to meddle in other people's business? Although he had been famous for a long time, Limacho's name had also spread throughout Jianghu. Although he wasn't afraid of her, he was certainly afraid of her. Unless it was absolutely necessary, who would want to make an enemy of such an expert? Song Qingshu, that kid has helped me before. How can I watch his woman be bullied by you? Limacho sneered. Qinghai's owl didn't respond. Mu Wanqing suddenly jumped out of Song Qingshu's arms. She glared at Limacho with a red face and said, Hey, what nonsense are you talking about? Who is his woman? Limacho faintly smiled and didn't explain. Mu Wanqing's actions fell into her eyes. As someone who had been through it, how could she not know her true thoughts? She said that she wanted to kill that person, but her actions were extremely protective of that person. She didn't even hesitate to use force against an evil expert. At the same time, on the other side, Yulingshan finally let go of Lin Pingji's hand. She lowered her voice and said, Little Lin, now you can finally rest assured. With that female devil standing up for her, Qinghai's owl won't be able to hurt her. Lin Pingji faintly nodded. It turned out that when he saw that Mu Wanqing was in danger, he subconsciously wanted to pull out his sword to help. After all, Song Qingshu had once helped him greatly. How could he just sit back and do nothing? Seeing that Lin Pingji was still staring at that side, Yulingshan couldn't help but feel a little jealous. She muttered, Little Lin, you see that the girl is beautiful and you forget everything. Why don't you think about your mediocre martial arts? If you rushed up Wouldn't you be dead in one move? I, I. Although Lin Pingji looked like a pretty boy, he wasn't a person who was good with words. He didn't know how to explain for a moment, and immediately felt extremely embarrassed. Shan we righteous people travel in Jianghu. Whether or not our martial arts are strong is actually secondary. What's more important is our chivalrous spirit. Pingji did not do anything wrong. When he saw injustice, he pulled out his sword to help. He is a role model for our generation. Yu Buchuan's words made the surrounding disciples wholeheartedly convinced. Even Ning Zhongzi had a look of admiration on his face. Unfortunately, no one knew what Yu Buchuan was thinking at this moment. Pingji tried to stand up for her just now, so he must have something to rely on. It must be that exquisite sword technique from before. It seems that he has already practiced it to a certain degree. But where did this mysterious sword technique come from? When Lin Pingji joined Mount Hua, he clearly only knew a few flowery but not practical moves. During this period of time, he hasn't even learned some of the basic sword techniques of Mount Hua. Could it be the Bixie swordplay? Yu Buchuan was frightened. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was the case. Yes, that year, the Lin family's Bixie swordplay was famous in Jianghu. Lin Jinan's martial arts were so weak that he definitely didn't have the aptitude to comprehend the essence of the swordplay. Lin Pingji is the only legitimate son of the Lin family. How could Lin Jinan not pass on the Bixie swordplay to him? During this period of time, Lin Pingji must have learned the orthodox sword techniques of our Mount Hua and finally comprehended the essence of the Bixie swordplay by analogy. That's why his sword technique improved by leaps and bounds. What a deep scheme this kid has. He said that he would go back to Fujin to pay his respects to his parents, and at the same time to see if there was anything left behind in the old house at Sunny Alley. It made me think that the real Bixie swordplay was hidden in the old house at Sunny Alley of the Lin family. Oof. If it wasn't for him accidentally giving himself away today, I would have really been deceived by him. Yu Buchuan narrowed his eyes and stared at Lin Pingji. He vaguely had a plan in his heart. His heart was in turmoil. He had thought of a lot of things, but in reality, only a moment had passed. On the other side, when Qinghai Yixiao heard Li Macho's words, he couldn't help but become angry. Surnamed Li, I was just trying to persuade you because you and I are on the same path. Do you really think that I am afraid of you? Who is on the same path as you? Li Macho's face turned cold. I have always killed people who are ungrateful and ungrateful. How can a lowly and shameless thing like you be compared to me? What a joke. You killed everyone in the Liu family. Even I was shocked by your ruthlessness. What? Now you're pretending to be a chivalrous woman. Qinghai Yixiao sneered and spat on the ground. Swoosh! A white horsetail whisk brushed past, and the table behind where Qinghai Yixiao had just been standing was swept into two. Qinghai Yixiao had been careless and suffered a big loss under Mu Wanqing's hands. Now that he was facing a famous female devil in the martial arts world, he didn't dare to be careless. He had already put up his guard and was able to avoid Li Macho's sudden attack. Surnamed Li, do you really want to fight? Seeing that she was ruthless, Qinghai Yixiao's face immediately became unsightly. Li Macho coldly snorted. I have sworn before that if anyone dares to mention the word Liu in front of me, I will definitely tear their body into 10,000 pieces. Qinghai Yixiao knew that today was not going to be a good day. He also stimulated the fierceness in his heart. If you want to fight, then fight. Do you think that I am afraid of you? Seeing that the two of them were fighting, the surrounding diners had already moved to the side to avoid being implicated. Because of this, Song Qing-shu, who was still sitting in his original position, was extremely conspicuous. Stinking brat, aren't you afraid? Mu Wanqing doubtfully looked at him. His calmness was a bit too abnormal. Why should I be afraid? Song Qing-shu's tone was extremely surprised. They can fight among themselves. What does it have to do with me? Mu Wanqing was momentarily speechless. Unexpectedly, she couldn't refute him. But with this interruption, she finally remembered something. Her face was slightly red as she glared at him. Did you just touch me? Song Qing-shu was startled. Just now, when Mu Wanqing fell into his arms, In order to protect her, he had indeed subconsciously hugged her waist, making it so that she couldn't stand up for a while. But when he forced Qinghai Yixiao to retreat, he quietly let go. He didn't expect that Mu Wanqing would be so sharp. In such a chaotic situation, she could clearly remember such a short contact. Maybe I did, Song Qingshu hesitantly replied. Mu Wanqing suddenly flew into a rage. She brandished her sword and stabbed towards him. I'm going to kill you. Song Qingshu didn't expect that she would make a move just like that. Originally, it would be effortless for him to receive her sword, but he really didn't want to reveal his identity. Who knew what Mu Wanqing's reaction would be if she knew the truth? He could only pretend to be someone who didn't know martial arts and hurriedly dodge backwards. As he dodged, he shouted, "Miss, you have to be reasonable. Just now, you clearly suddenly threw yourself into my arms. I only wanted to help you up out of kindness. Physical contact is unavoidable." You're still talking. Mu Wanqing became even more ashamed and resentful. The speed at which she brandished her sword became even faster. Puchi. On the other side, Yu Lingshan saw Song Qingshu's sorry figure and couldn't help but cover her mouth and laugh. I thought he was some kind of unworldly expert. Turns out he's just a hedonistic son of rich parents. Song Qingshu dodged and dodged. Unknowingly, he bumped into Qinghai Yixiao's back. Qinghai Yixiao and Li Macho's battle had reached a critical juncture. How could he bear to be disturbed? He couldn't help but angrily shouted, "Get lost!" He casually swung his palm towards Song Qingshu's back. End of this chapter. Chapter 554. Song Qingshu let out a blood-curdling scream as he staggered and fell towards Mu Wanqing with bared fangs and brandished claws. Seeing him rushing towards the tip of her sword, Mu Wanqing didn't know why she subconsciously moved the tip of her sword. She just missed the best time to dodge. By the time she reacted, Song Qingshu had already crashed into her arms. Mu Wanqing only felt her vision go black. She couldn't stand steadily and fell backwards. Just as she wanted to get up, she felt her chest sink. That bastard was directly on top of her. The girl's body was so soft and fragrant that Song Qingshu couldn't bear to get up for a moment. He closed his eyes and simply pretended to be seriously injured and couldn't control his body. He kept moaning there. I can't, I'm gonna die, I can't breathe," being pressed by a strange man like this. She could even feel the heat of his body on her chest. Mu Wanqing suddenly felt ashamed and resentful. "Get up, it's me who can't breathe." As she spoke, she pushed the bastard on top of her. Helplessly, he didn't move at all. Song Qingshu hurriedly explained, "Miss, I really don't want to take advantage of you. It's just that the bastard just slapped me with his palm. I feel like my whole body is falling apart. I can't move at all." Just now, Mu Wanqing saw Qinghai Yixiao's palm hit him with her own eyes. With Qinghai Yixiao's martial arts, how could an ordinary person withstand it? He was already lucky that he didn't die on the spot. But knowing was one thing, understanding was another. Mu Wanqing regretted it. If she had known this would happen, she would have stabbed him with her sword and ended everything. She wouldn't have suffered such a great humiliation. Since she was a child, she had been taught by an extreme master. Mu Wanqing was the kind of person who regarded men's lives as worthless. She had always been as pure as ice and as clean as jade. Not to mention now, even if there were many men around her, she would still draw her sword against them. Noticing that Mu Wanqing had raised her arm and was about to release a poison arrow, Song Qingshu secretly broke out in a cold sweat. This unyielding temperament, Song Qingshu stopped teasing her and said sanctimoniously, "I don't dare to offend you. Even if I have to risk my life, I will get up." He gritted his teeth and moved his body, trying to get off her body. On the contrary, Mu Wanqing felt a little apologetic. He had suffered such a serious injury. If he continued to move, he might not be able to keep his life. Of course, it was absolutely impossible for Mu Wanqing to agree to him continuing to lie on her body. Song Qingshu slightly circulated his inner energy and forced out hot sweat. Unknowingly, the sweat slid down Mu Wanqing's face and neck. Mu Wanqing was furious at first, But then she realized that the man on top of her was in so much pain that his face was covered in sweat. She couldn't help but ask with some concern, "Are you okay?" "It doesn't matter. My life doesn't matter. Your reputation is more important." When Mu Wanqing heard what the man on top of her said, she felt both touched and apologetic. For a moment, she did not know what to say. Even when Song Qing-shu got up several times, but halfway through, because of his lack of strength, he fell on top of her. Other than her face becoming redder and redder, she did not urge him to scold him again. Although she appears to be very fierce, she is still a kind person in her bones. Song Qing-shu sighed inwardly. In this way, he felt embarrassed to continue taking advantage of her. He propped himself up and said, "Miss, push me." The faintly discernible body contact made Mu Wanqing feel ashamed. When she heard his words, she quickly stretched out her hand and pushed to the side. This time, it was not as fruitless as before. The man on top of her let out a cry and finally rolled to the side. Mu Wanqing suddenly stood up and raised her long sword, wishing she could stab him twice. However, with his heavily injured and powerless appearance, she did not have the heart to do so. She could only turn her head towards Hai Yixiao, the main culprit, and angrily said, "I'll kill you." Qing Hai Yixiao had been fighting with Limacho for a long time. Unknowingly, he had fallen into a disadvantageous position. Seeing the opponent's exquisite moves, her Qinggong was incomparably mysterious, and thinking of her famous soul-freezing silver needles, Qing Hai Yixiao was already somewhat frightened. Now that Mu Wanqing suddenly joined in, he completely panicked, and his moves became even more disorderly. Limacho was very experienced in fighting. As soon as she saw the opponent's flaw, she took advantage of it. Qing Hai Yixiao hurriedly parried, but in the end he was still swept in the chest by her horsetail whisk. Blood spurted out, and he fell to the ground. For a short time, he would not be able to fight again. When Mu Wanqing saw that Qing Hai Yixiao had lost his resistance, it was not good for her to take advantage of him. She could only snort, put away her sword, and stood to the side, her face extremely cold. Limacho looked at her, whether intentionally or unintentionally, and praised in her heart, "No wonder you have a relationship with Song Qing-shu. You are indeed a heavenly beauty." Qing Hai Yixiao angrily said, "The one surnamed Li, I am not convinced. If it wasn't for someone helping me, how could I lose to you?" Limacho sneered and said, "I thought you were some otherworldly expert. Turns out you are just a cowardly bandit who can't afford to lose. Touch your heart and tell me, if we were to fight one-on-one, would you be able to beat me?" Just now, Limacho was afraid of Qing Hai Yixiao's reputation in the evil path. At the beginning, her moves were mainly to test the opponent's strength. After she tested the opponent's strength, she couldn't help but feel disdain. This so-called devil was only SOSO. If she used her full strength, she could take his life in 20 moves. Hearing Limacho's disdain, Qing Hai Yixiao's face turned red. But he had heard that the Scarlet Serpent deity was vicious and merciless. In order to save his life, he could only bite the bullet and say, "That's right, in terms of martial arts, you are a bit higher than me." But the Qinghai sect has many experts. People like me can only be considered as the lowest in the Qinghai sect. If you dare to kill me, you won't be able to escape the Qinghai sect pursuit. Qinghai sect? Limacho's brows wrinkled. This sect was a bit unfamiliar to her, but she had always been an extremely proud person. After being attacked like this, she couldn't help but sneer and say, "In the previous exchange, the Qinghai sect's martial arts are only SOSO. If I kill a person like you, then I'll just kill you. What can the Qinghai sect do to me?" Limacho casually waved her hand, and a soul-freezing silver needle shot out from her sleeve. Qinghai Yixiao's pupils contracted. Unfortunately, he was seriously injured and could only watch as the soul-freezing silver needle came closer and closer. Everyone present thought that this devil was about to die. Who would have thought that when the soul-freezing silver needle was about to reach his body, a whoosh sound was heard. A biting cold wind appeared beside him, and the slender soul-freezing silver needle was broken. Aya! Mu Wanqing, who was standing nearby, couldn't help but cover her arm. Song Qingshu's eyesight was very sharp. He discovered that half of the soul, freezing silver needle was stuck in her arm. His expression couldn't help but greatly change. He hurriedly rushed over. "How are you?" At this moment, the situation was critical. Song Qingshu didn't think too much. With a ripping sound, he tore open her sleeve where the needle was stuck. Just as he was about to check, who knew that a crisp slap would respond to him? In order to earn a click in the future, the updates will be changed to a chapter in the afternoon and a chapter in the evening. Please forgive me. Chapter 555. Because the soul-freezing silver needles were highly toxic, Song Qingshu's entire attention was focused on detoxifying her. So he didn't realize that his actions were inappropriate. But from Mu Wanqing's point of view, it was this strange man who suddenly ran over and tore open her sleeves. So how could she remain calm? Giving him a slap was already considered light. If it wasn't for Mu Wanqing's poison that caused her whole body to feel dizzy, she would have already chased after him with her sword. Song Qingshu didn't have time to explain and hurriedly shouted at Li Macho, "Antidote." He could of course use his internal energy to force out the poison, but it was too slow, so it wasn't as effective as the antidote. That playboy is dead for sure. Hearing that Song Qingshu actually dared to yell at the Scarlet Serpent Fairy, who killed without batting an eye, everyone present had the same thought. Who knew that Li Macho would just roll her eyes at him, and actually took out 2 porcelain bottles from her bosom and threw them over, coldly saying, "Apply the red one externally, and take the white one internally." Song Qingshu was startled. He didn't expect that Li Macho would so straightforwardly give him the antidote. Could it be that she saw through his identity? Song Qingshu shook his head, got rid of these messy thoughts in his mind, and began to apply the medicine on Mu Wanqing. "You're not allowed to touch me." Mu Wanqing's poison had attacked her heart, and she weakly refused. How could Song Qingshu still listen to her at this time? He first fed her an antidote to protect her heart meridian, and then poured out the medicine from the red porcelain bottle and applied it on the wound, scattering it all over the ground. Li Macho, who was watching from not far away, felt her heart ache and couldn't help but angrily say, "Stinking brat, why do you need to pour so much?" Song Qingshu didn't have the slightest bit of embarrassment and casually replied, "Pour more. It's a bit safer." Seeing that the antidote that she had painstakingly refined was wasted by him like this, Li Macho simply wanted to slap him to death. But at this moment her attention was completely focused on the 3 people who had entered the inn, and for a moment she couldn't care about Song Qingshu. "What a big tone you have, little girl. You dare to say that my Qinghai sect's martial arts are not good?" The one who spoke was a tall and sturdy old man with a fluttering black beard. The other person beside him was dressed similarly, but the third person looked extremely frightening. He actually had no nose on his face, and his face was as flat as a piece of whiteboard. "Finger tap?" Li Macho frowned, waved her horsetail whisk, and said in a deep voice, "Since when did the Shaolin Temple manage the affairs of the Qinghai sect?" "Humph," the black-bearded old man snorted. "This little girl is quite knowledgeable to recognize the old man's one-finger Diana, but her knowledge is very limited. Who said that only Shaolin Temple monks know one-finger Diana?" "Oh," Li Macho suddenly understood. "I was wondering who it was. So it's the twin killers of Hejin." The twin killers of Hejin had fought against Sandu's Vajra, subduing Demon Circle at the lion-slaying assembly, forcing Sandu into a dangerous situation. Together with other masters, they broke the previously invincible Vajra, subduing Demon Circle, and became famous throughout the world. Naturally, Li Macho had heard their names. Seeing that they had joined forces, her expression couldn't help but become serious. Song Qingshu had been taking care of Mu Wanqing, so he didn't have time to pay attention to the people who came in. When he heard Li Macho mention the twin killers of Hejin, he curiously raised his head and looked at Hao Mi's perfectly fine fingers. He couldn't help but be surprised. Previously in Kaifeng, didn't Hao Mi's fingers get broken by his inner strength? How did they recover so quickly? "Master, you have to help me." While Song Qingshu was still puzzled, the first owl of Qinghai, who was lying on the ground like a dead dog, suddenly howled. Hearing his words, the rest of the people in the inn were shocked. Yu Lingshan whispered to Ning Zhongzi, "Mother, the first owl of Qinghai is already a famous master of the evil path." "Who is his master?" Ning Zhongzi was also very puzzled. He couldn't help but look at Yu Buchuan as if asking for help. Yu Buchuan pondered for a while and thought of a person. According to the rumors, the master of the first owl of Qinghai is the great devil of the martial arts world, the white slate evil star. The Huashan disciples looked at the three people at the door. One of them didn't have a nose, and his facial features were like a piece of white slate. Although Yu Buchuan deliberately lowered his voice, the masters present could still hear him. The white slate evil star laughed and said, "I didn't expect that after so many years, there are still people in the Central Plains who remember my name. This must be the gentleman Sword Mountain sect master that everyone talks about." Yu Buchuan forced a smile and stood up to return the greeting. "That's me." The white slate evil star snorted and replied with a fake smile. "Today's matter has nothing to do with the Huashan sect. I hope sect master you doesn't get involved in this mess." Yu Buchuan nodded and said, "Of course. The Huashan sect and the Qinghai sect have never had any conflicts." Hearing that his master intended to stand by and watch, Lin Pingji immediately became anxious. "Master, isn't this going against the path of chivalry?" It wasn't that he was concerned about Li Macho, but now that Li Macho was protecting Mu Wanqing, if she were to die in the hands of this white slate evil star, then wouldn't Mu Wanqing be hopeless? How could he be worthy of Song Qingshu's kindness in the past? Cough. Yu Buchuan's face darkened. "Pingji, if you want to be chivalrous, you also need to look at the target. Li Macho is a female devil who kills without batting an eye. How could she be worthy of our chivalry?" Previously, because of Yu Lingshan's matter, the two of them still had some feelings for each other. Seeing that Yu Buchuan had turned hostile so quickly, Li Macho couldn't help but laugh coldly. "What a good gentleman, Sword Mountain. You really talk about benevolence and morality." Yu Lingshan had already been suppressing a bellyful of anger because of the previous matter. Hearing the mockery in Li Macho's words, she couldn't help but be furious. "Surnamed Li, I've tolerated you for a long time. What, even want to fight with me?" Li Macho looked at her disdainfully. Yu Lingshan's face immediately flushed red. She was in a dilemma. Yu Buchuan unhurriedly said, "Shan now is the time for the seniors of the Azure Sea sect to settle their grievances with Taoist Zhang. As for the grievances between our Mount Hua sect and Taoist Zhang, it won't be too late to settle them later." Hearing Yu Buchuan's words, even the white slate evil star couldn't help but curse him for being shameless. His words were pleasant to hear, but Li Macho wasn't three-headed and six-armed. After fighting with the experts of the Azure Sea sect, it was still uncertain whether she could keep her life. With the addition of the Mount Hua sect taking advantage of the situation, how could she still be alive? Li Macho clearly also realized that she was in a dangerous situation. In fact, with the ancient tomb sect's Qin Gong, if she really wanted to leave, no one would be able to stop her. However, when she looked at Mu Wanqing who was beside her, she couldn't help but hesitate. "Sect Master Yu, the Mount Hua sect is a famous and upright sect. Today's matter has nothing to do with this young lady. Sect Master Yu, please remember the word chivalrous and protect her later." Li Macho thought for a long time before she came up with an idea. She raised her head and said to Yu Buchuan, "These famous and upright sects value their reputation the most. Entrusting Mu Wanqing to the Mount Hua sect was her only chance of survival. After all, if Mu Wanqing fell into the hands of the Azure Sea sect, she would definitely live a life worse than death." Yu Buchuan couldn't help but hesitate. Before he could reply, the Azure Sea sect's owl laughed first. "Surnamed Li, you're so protective of this young lady. Could it be that she's the illegitimate daughter of one of your lovers?" Hearing this, Li Macho and Mu Wanqing simultaneously flew into a rage. End of this chapter. Chapter 556. Shut up. Because of her past, Mu Wanqing was already very sensitive. Li Macho was even more famous for her purity. Even when she was in love with Lu Zhanyuan as a young girl, she was not willing to let her lover take advantage of her. Hearing Qing Hai's words, how could she bear it? The two women raised their hands at the same time. One of them was a poisoned sleeve dart, and the other was a soul-freezing silver needle. In the blink of an eye, they were already in front of him. A white shadow flashed, and the white slate evil star moved from the door to Qing Hai's face. With a wave of his long sleeve, he swept the two poisonous, hidden weapons to the ground. Humph, you want to kill my Qing Hai sex people in front of me? You're still too inexperienced. Li Macho's heart sank. Judging from the martial arts that the opponent had just displayed, she was afraid that she would really be in danger today. Qing Hai's owl had 1 foot in the gates of hell. At this moment, he finally came back to his senses. Still in a state of shock, he said, "Master, although this bitch is hateful, her appearance is incomparably charming. Master, you're lucky today." His voice was extremely vulgar. The people in the restaurant did not expect that their disciple would dare to speak to their master like this, who knew that not only was the white slate evil star not angry. He laughed and said, "Disciple, you're really considerate. Never mind. When I'm tired of playing with her, I'll reward you." "Thank you, master." Qing Hai Xiao was immediately overjoyed. His gaze occasionally drifted to Mu Wanqing, who was on the other side, and he felt extremely comfortable in his heart. "Although I've suffered a fright today, I've obtained 2 stunning beauties, one big and one small, as compensation. Hee, although master's martial arts are high, he's old. When the time comes, his strength will certainly be lacking. Bo Tai and Hao Mi, the 2 martial uncles, are not interested in women. In the end, these 2 beauties will only benefit me. You're courting death." Li Macho's face was as cold as ice. How could she bear it? Her figure flashed, and she waved her horsetail whisk to attack Qing Hai's owl's vital points. Of course, the white slate evil star would not sit idly by. He hastily moved to protect his disciple. Who would have guessed that Li Macho was just trying to create a diversion? She suddenly changed her stances and instead fiercely attacked the whiteboard fiend. All these years, Li Macho had turned the Wulian world upside down, but she was still able to live a free and unfettered life. Her martial arts and poison needles were only one aspect. The other was her rich battle experience. If she met someone with weaker martial arts than her, she could easily defeat them. If she met someone with the same level of martial arts, she would have a last laugh. If she met someone with a higher level of martial arts than her, she could use her wits to escape. In the past, she was able to kidnap Lu Wushuang from the hands of Huang Yaoshi, one of the 5 uniques. Now, she was just a white-level evil star. No matter how good her martial arts were, she could not compare to Huang Yaoshi. Therefore, when she pretended to be angry and attacked Qing Hai Xiao like a madman, the whiteboard evil star unexpectedly did not see any flaw in her act. In a battle between experts, there was only a thin line of difference. The whiteboard evil star lost the initiative. Li Macho's attacks and the soul-freezing silver needles that flew out from time to time made him flustered. His martial arts were actually restricted to the point that he could not use them. He was so angry that he dodged and shouted. On the other side, Yu Buchuan saw the entire battle between the two. His heart sank. Li Macho had been able to roam Jianghu for so long. If there were only the 2 of them on the battlefield, the whiteboard evil star would have died on the spot. Yu Buchuan was feeling very conflicted. On one hand, he had heard that the whiteboard evil star was Zhuo Longchan's good friend for many years. His coming to the Central Plains this time was probably related to Zhuo Longchan. If he could borrow Li Macho's hand to get rid of him, it would be the same as breaking one of Zhuo Longchan's arms. But on the other hand, Yu Buchuan also knew that he had already offended Li Macho. If he let her escape, Mount Hua sect would be in big trouble in the future. After all, no one wanted to have such a demoness lying in ambush, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Oh well, I'll wait until both of them are injured. Then I'll catch them all in one fell swoop. Yu Buchuan secretly made up his mind. Originally, whether it was the whiteboard evil star or the twin evils of Hijian, their martial arts were not below his. It would be good if he could protect himself. But seeing that Li Macho was so powerful, Yu Buchuan naturally had other ideas. "Senior brother, I'm afraid the whiteboard evil star will fail miserably this time. Should we help him? How Me, who was on the side, frowned. She was obviously not optimistic about the situation. Bowtie coldly snorted. It's good to teach him a lesson first. Don't act as if your eyes grow on top of your head. The Central Plains is full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. There are many people we can't afford to offend. Hami nodded in agreement. She gently stroked her finger that had just recovered. She recalled the youth she had met in Kaifeng and couldn't help but feel a lingering fear. She thought that if she hadn't obtained the black jade healing ointment from the Shaolin Temple in the western regions, the one finger Zen that she had practiced for decades would have been wasted. After Mu Wanqing took the antidote, the poison in her body slowly subsided. She also regained her spirit and struggled to stand up. Song Qing-shu hurriedly stopped her. What are you doing? I'm going to help her. Mu Wanqing held her long sword and stared at the two people who were fighting. She was looking for an opportunity to deal a fatal blow. Nonsense. The poison in your body hasn't been completely removed. If you rush up now, you'll just die. Song Qing-shu reached out and pressed her down on the chair again. Seeing this idiot stop her time and time again, Mu Wanqing was extremely angry. She said in a low voice, "If I go and help now, I still have a chance of survival. If I don't go and help, when Taoist Priest Li is defeated, my life will be worse than death. Do you understand?" Song Qing-shu shook his head. "Don't worry. No matter what the outcome is, no one will dare to touch you." Mu Wanqing was confused by the certainty in his tone. She subconsciously asked why. Song Qing-shu smiled. "Because you're the Golden Snake King's woman. In Shandong, no one dares to offend the Golden Snake King." Bah! Mu Wanqing's face turned red. She immediately became bashful. Who is his woman? After a long time, Mu Wanqing suddenly reacted. She looked at him coldly. "Weren't you so seriously injured that you couldn't move just now?" Song Qing-shu was startled. He pretended to be seriously injured just now to take advantage of her. But later, when he saw that she was poisoned, how could he still pretend to be dead? He immediately jumped up from the ground. Just now, when I saw that you were poisoned, I suddenly had an abnormal belief that drove me to save you. Now, I'm going to faint. I'll kill you." Mu Wanqing still didn't understand that she had been fooled. She immediately felt ashamed and indignant. She pulled out her long sword and slashed at Song Qing-shu. "Don't slash. If you keep slashing, I'll really die," Song Qing-shu shouted as he dodged in the restaurant. The other people in the restaurant couldn't help but laugh when they saw this. Yu Lingshan couldn't help but pinch Lin Pingji. "You men are so bad. You don't even want your life to be taken advantage of." Lin Pingji was very depressed. The one who made the mistake was obviously that person. Why did she pinch him? Bowtie looked at Song Qing-shu doubtfully. Just now, every time he fell or lowered his head, he just happened to dodge Mu Wanqing's long sword. Could it be that he was some hidden expert? Chapter 557. Whether it was the whiteboard evil star or the twin killers of Hejin's sect, they were all the elders of the previous generation of Wulin. Li Macho could barely deal with one of them with the ancient Toon sect's unique skills and her actual combat ability. Now that the three of them were attacking her from the front and the back, how could she resist? But Li Macho, after all, had walked on the edge of life and death for a long time, so she reacted very quickly. First, she shot out several ice spirits at the same time to force back the whiteboard evil star, and then used her horsetail whisk to repel the twin killers of Hajin's sect's acupuncture point needle and judge brush. But the twin killers of Hajin sect cooperated perfectly. Two of their fingers used the power of one finger Zen to attack her from the left and right. Suddenly, a black gas appeared on Limacho's palm, and she raised her palm to meet Bowtie's finger. Limacho used the counterforce to retreat 10 feet, and Haomi's one finger Zen hit the air. Seeing that she had forced back 3 senior masters in the blink of an eye, the rest of the people in the hall cheered loudly. Bowtie glared at the people around him, and the restaurant suddenly fell into silence. He raised his finger that was gradually turning black, and his face changed slightly. 5 poison divine palm. How does my 5 poison divine palm taste. Although Limacho had a relaxed smile on her face, she secretly complained. Just now, she had taken the opponent's 1 finger's in. Although she succeeded in poisoning her opponent, her whole arm was sore and numb. She was afraid that she would not be able to use it in a short time. Once one of her arms was disabled, when Limacho faced the enemy with her horsetail whisk, she could not use the 5 poison divine palm and the soul-freezing silver needles at the same time. In that case, her threat would be reduced by half. If these people joined hands, she would be defeated within 30 moves at most. Senior brother, quickly force out the poison. The 5 poison divine palm was too famous, so Haomi hurriedly said. While guarding him, he also blocked Limacho's only escape route. In Haomi's view, as long as the 3 of them were in good condition, it would be easy to take down Limacho. There was no need to be anxious. After all, there were people of Huashan sect watching from the side. If Yu Buchuan, that hypocrite, took advantage of him while he was attacking Limacho, it would be really hard to defend. Bowtie nodded slightly and closed his eyes to force out the poison. Drops of black blood slowly seeped out of his fingertips. The whiteboard evil star had just suffered a big loss, so he was very angry. But even though he wanted to get back at her, he had to admit that he had underestimated this woman. The double evils of Hejin School didn't attack Limacho, so he couldn't figure out Limacho's real strength. So he became cautious and didn't dare to move forward recklessly. The 4 of them had their own thoughts and were in a deadlock for a while. Mu Wanqing also discovered the delicate situation. How could she still care about pursuing and killing Song Qingshu? She wanted to go over and help Limacho, but she was also worried that the balance would be broken, triggering an immediate fight between the few of them. For a moment, she was in a dilemma. Hey, come here quickly. Noticing that there was no panic in Song Qingshu's eyes, Mu Wanqing's heart moved and she waved at him. I'm not coming over. If I do, you'll kill me. Song Qingshu quickly shook his head. Mu Wanqing took a deep breath and calmed her rising anger. I promise I won't kill you, but you're not allowed to hit me. Song Qingshu quickly added. Mu Wanqing suddenly froze. She didn't know why, but the tone of the person in front of her made her think of the person she met on Mount Hua. A subtle feeling arose in her heart. Mu Wanqing's tone also became gentle. I won't hit you. Oh. Only then did Song Qingshu slowly walk over. Who do you think will win? Although she had the answer in her heart, Mu Wanqing still asked with a glimmer of hope. Of course, Song Qingshu curled his lips. Of course, these 3 old monsters will win. It's just that they have too many concerns and forgot that this scarlet serpent deity is also an arrow at the end of its flight. Shut up. Mu Wanqing was angry and anxious. She never expected that he would say such a thing. Wasn't he harming Limacho? Limacho also turned around and glared fiercely at him. Originally, she was slowly adjusting her breathing, and her arm had gradually regained feeling. With his disturbance, how would the enemy give her the time to do so? Sure enough, the whiteboard fiend noticed the change in her expression and couldn't help but chuckle. Beauty, this old man was careless just now, so you took advantage of me. Why don't we play again now? As he spoke, he calmed his mind and walked towards Limacho. Limacho's temples were slightly sweating. She had already made up her mind that even if she couldn't escape today, she would drag one of them down with her. Stop. Mu Wanqing ran over and raised her sword to protect Limacho's side. I haven't had the chance to get intimate with the big beauty, but the little beauty is jealous and ran over here herself. The white slate fiend's eyes lit up. He smiled extremely wretchedly, obviously not taking Mu Wanqing seriously. Limacho also frowned. Go away. You're not his opponent. I, Mu Wanqing, have always been clear about gratitude and grudges. You saved me, so how can I leave you? Mu Wanqing shook her head, not having the slightest intention of leaving. Your martial arts are too low. There's no point in staying and helping me. Instead, I'll have it divert my attention to take care of you. Limacho had always been used to the coldness of the world. Even her own disciple would betray her in a critical moment. She didn't think that a young girl she met by chance would actually die with her. Limacho felt a rare trace of warmth in her heart. She thought that no matter what, she would protect her today. Miss Mu, listen to me. These people are despicable and shameless. If you stay, not only will you not be able to help, you'll also implicate yourself. In a moment, I'll cover you. Take the opportunity to escape. In the future, when you see Song Qing-shu, tell him that I, Li Macho, have already repaid the favor I owed him. Hearing Li Macho's words, Song Qing-shu was slightly startled. Last time, he had casually saved her from Xiancheng. He didn't think that she would still remember it. In order to return the favor, she would even sacrifice her own life. With the lightness kung fu of the ancient tomb sect, if Li Macho really wanted to leave, the chances of successfully escaping were not small. But she had stayed here to fight. It was obvious that she didn't want to see Mu Wanqing fall into the hands of the enemy and be humiliated. He didn't think that a demoness like Li Macho, who killed without batting an eye, would be so loyal. For a moment, Song Qing-shu was filled with emotion. Mu Wanqing was even more touched. Seeing the white slate fiend getting closer and closer, she anxiously shouted, "Stop! Do you know who I am?" Noticing her slightly panicked expression, the white slate fiend couldn't help but feel like a cat playing with a mouse. He stopped and looked at her playfully. "Oh, tell me, who are you?" Now that things had come to this, even if she didn't want to recognize that father, she could only give it a try. Mu Wanqing clenched her teeth, puffed out her chest, and said, "I'm the Princess of Dali. The Prince of Jinan, Duan Zhengchun, is my father, and the Emperor of Baoding, Duan Zhengming, is my uncle. If you hurt us, the Duan family of Dali won't let you off." The Duan family of Dali? The white slate fiend was stunned at first. Then he laughed out loud. "Even Duan Yanqing, the head of the 4 great evildoers, is not in my eyes, let alone Duan Zhengchun, this embroidered pillow." Hami also sneered repeatedly. "It just so happens that we brothers have long wanted to go to Dali. We want to see whether your Duan family of Dali's one yang finger is more powerful or our one finger's end is more powerful." Dali was far away in Tiannan, while the Azure Sea sect's sphere of influence was in the western regions. How could the Duan family of Dali be in their eyes? Chapter 558. As soon as Mu Wanqing said this, her pretty face turned red, but the effect was also very obvious. The entire inn fell into silence, and even White Slate Evil Star stopped in his tracks. Song Qing-shu's body also shook 3 times. He never thought that with Mu Wanqing's proud temperament, she would actually say such a thing. "Golden Snake King, it's not that big." White Slate Evil Star hesitated, but before he could finish, he was pulled aside by Hao Mi and whispered to her. "What? You said the one who hurt your finger last time was Golden Snake King?" White Slate Evil Star's expression changed slightly, and he was shocked. He was very clear about Bow Tie and Hao Mi, the 2 brothers' martial art. Although he could easily defeat any one of them, if the other party joined hands, he would definitely not be able to defeat them. Song Qing-shu fought 1 against 2, but he let Hao Mi poke him with 1 finger. Instead, his finger was broken, and his cultivation was almost destroyed. What a frightening cultivation. Yes, we asked around afterward, and we confirmed that the young man we met that night was him. Recalling the situation that night, Hao Mi still felt fear. White Slate Evil Star's expression was uncertain. Ever since he came to the Central Plains, there had been rumors about how great Golden Snake King Song Qing-shu was. They said he defeated all the top masters in the world and won the Golden Snake King. They said he could call the wind and summon the rain with his own strength and annihilate the Manchurian Qing's army of 100,000. They boasted as if he was the best in the world. He originally thought it was just a rumor in the Jianghu, and how powerful could Song Qing-shu be at that age? But now that Hao Mi had confirmed it, he had to believe it. However, he was a person who had been famous for decades. If he retreated after being scared by a little girl, where would he put his face in the future? White Slate Evil Star rolled his eyes and came up with a plan. He looked at Mu Wanqing and said, "You say you are, but what evidence do you have?" Mu Wanqing was actually very strong-willed. She thought that if it wasn't for saving Li Macho, she would not have said those words even if she died. However, it was already embarrassing enough, so she didn't care about being more embarrassed. Mu Wanqing pointed to the nearby, Qinghai Yixiao bit her lip and said, "You can ask your disciple if I'm here to look for him." Seeing the inquiring look in his master's eyes, Qinghai Yixiao said hesitantly, "She was indeed asking about the Golden Snake Camp just now." Bastard. Whiteboard Evil Star was so angry that he was about to explode. He thought to himself, "You are also a person who has been in Jianghu for many years. Why don't you even have this little bit of insight? Don't you know who you can and can't touch?" Seeing that Xinghai's owl had suddenly provoked such a strong enemy for him, the Whiteboard Evil Star felt like tearing him apart. Actually, according to his fierce reputation in the past, in such a situation, he would most likely choose to kill the people around him to silence them. But now, there were so many people in the inn, including Yubuchuan and the others from the Washan sect. It was hard to guarantee that no one would be able to escape alive. If that happened, they would really have a blood feud with the Golden Snake King. It was better to offend them a little than to have a blood feud. Whiteboard Evil Star quickly made a choice and laughed. "Miss, it turns out that you are the Golden Snake King's man. Please forgive me if I have offended you today." Mu Wanqing was stunned. She had originally brought up the name of Song Qing just to make the other party hesitate. She never thought that it would be so useful. The other party seemed to be directly frightened. Oh my God, is Song Qing really so famous that he is actually more useful than the Duan family of Dali? On the other side, Yulingshan was obviously quite surprised. The Duan family of Dali was already in existence that most people in the Jianghu couldn't afford to offend. She didn't expect that it could not compare to the name of Song Qing. Nowadays, the most popular person in Jianghu is probably Song Xiaoxia. Ning Zhongze was also amazed. As the wife of a sect leader, she naturally knew more details. Although the rumors in Jianghu were slightly exaggerated, it was not too much to say that he was qualified to compete for the world's #1. On the side, Yubuchuan's eyes flashed. These devils were not so easy to talk to when they saw the Mount Hua sect, but when they heard the name Song Qing, it was like a mouse seeing a cat. It seemed that in Jianghu, the strong were still respected. The matter of the Bixia swordbook had to be hurried. Yubuchuan thoughtfully looked at Lin Pingji and Yulingshan, who were whispering with their heads down. He already had an idea in his mind. Wait, just when everyone was thinking, Bowtie spoke. "This lady is the Golden Snake King's woman, so we naturally won't make things difficult for her. But Elderly doesn't have any relationship with the Golden Snake King, right?" Bowtie was careless just now and was hit by Li Macho's 5 poisons divine palm. He had just forced the poisonous blood out of his body and was full of anger. Naturally, he was not willing to let Li Macho go like this. Who said so? She is also the Golden Snake King's woman. Mu Wanqing originally wanted to save Li Macho, but now that the situation was not right, she couldn't care less. As soon as Song Qingshu heard this, he was happy. Who said that Mu Wanqing was a jealous person? She was obviously a flower of understanding. Not only did she take the initiative to enter the door, but she also bought one get one free. Before Bowtie could react, Li Macho was angry first. "What nonsense are you talking about? Who is his woman?" Although Li Macho was cruel and merciless in Jianghu, she was very concerned about her reputation in this area. Although she knew that Mu Wanqing had good intentions, she would not accept it. Hami quickly ran to Bowtie and said quickly, "Forget it, senior brother. If she really is the Song woman, killing her will cause a lot of trouble." Bowtie still had not calmed down, but she said she's not. White Slate Evil Star laughed. "Brother Bo, you don't understand women. Women often say one thing, but mean another. She says no, but in her heart, she often says yes. Moreover, if she really has nothing to do with the Song man, why would she risk her life to save this little girl, and why would this little girl risk her life to save her?" That makes sense. Bowtie nodded and said to Li Macho, "Well, for the sake of the Golden Snake King, I'll let you go today. Let's go." The 3 of them spoke one after another. Their imagination was very strong, which made Song Qingshu admire them from the bottom of his heart. Li Macho was even angrier, but she was afraid of the 3 people's martial arts, so she hesitated for a moment. White Slate Evil Star and the others were invited by Zhuo Linshan of the Song Mountain sect to plan a big event, so they naturally did not want to cause trouble. After saying a few polite words, they left with the Qinghai owl. However, halfway through, they suddenly stopped and looked at the two people who came in from the door with vigilance. Why is it so lively here? Hey, the people of the Qinghai sect and the Huashan sect are all here, which saves us two brothers a trip. One of them was dressed in rich clothes, like a fat official, and said with a smile, "Who are you guys?" Bowtie could see that the two people's footsteps were light, their breathing was long, and their eyes occasionally flashed. It was obvious that they were masters among masters, so he could not help but be vigilant. The rich, fat official smiled. Shangshan. Chapter 559. The expressions of the Qinghai sect's disciples changed dramatically as if they had heard the most terrifying thing. They all took a few steps back and stared at the two with fear written all over their faces. Yu Lingshan curiously asked, "Father, who exactly are these two people? Why did those people from the Qinghai sect look so arrogant just now, but now they look like they have seen a ghost?" Yu Buchuan's face was also pale. He murmured, "It is said that there is an island of chivalry in the vast South Sea. Every 30 years, they will send two messengers, Zhang San and Li Si, to the Central Plains to invite the sect leaders of the various sects to the island of chivalry to drink lava porridge." Note, the original island of chivalry would send people to the Central Plains every 10 years. Because this novel is a combination of 14 novels, the timeline has been adjusted to once every 30 years. It's just porridge. Since they invited us, we could just go and drink it. Yu Lingshan was even more puzzled. Most of the people in the restaurant nodded. After all, they were still young and had not experienced the bloodshed of 30 years ago. Yu Buchuan smiled bitterly. But 30 years have passed, and none of the sect leaders who went to the island of chivalry came back alive. They were the top masters of the Jianghu at that time. Among them was the abbot of Shaolin, Master Miaoti, and the abbot of Wudong's Baiyun Monastery, Taoist Yucha. Their martial arts were not inferior to the abbot of Shaolin and the abbot of Wudong. Yu Lingshan was also frightened. She murmured, "Then why don't we just not go?" Yu Buchuan seemed to remember something terrible. 30 years ago, all the heads who didn't go were either brutally killed or their sects were removed from Jianghu. At that time, the head of the Qingshang sect, Taoist Sushan, was unrivaled in Jianghu with his internal energy. He was a top-notch master in Jianghu, but he was killed by the two envoys in one move. Back then, the two envoys were still young. From then on, no one dared to go against them. Then why haven't I heard of any of the seniors of the Huashan sect being invited to the Huashan sect? Yu Lingshan suddenly remembered and asked in confusion. At the time, our sects of energy and the sword sects were locked in a fierce battle. Neither of us could do anything to the other, and the position of sect leader was left vacant. Perhaps that's why we were able to avoid disaster. Yu Buchuan groaned inwardly. What was going on? Ever since he became the sect master of Mount Hua, Zhuolong Chan had been eyeing him covetously from the outside, and the sword sect had ulterior motives. There was even an enemy spy among the disciples. The slightest carelessness could lead to the destruction of the sect, and now the Isle of Heroes had gotten involved. Sect Master Yu is truly knowledgeable. I am Zhang San, the stout and fat official said with a smile. Li Si. The other black-clothed man's tone was cold. Sect leader Yu, please forgive me. Allow me to first discuss this with these people of the Azure Sea sect. Zhang San turned his head to look at the three people of the Whiteboard Fiend Star. Among the three of you, who is the current sect leader of the Azure Sea sect? Bowtie snorted. My Qinghai sect has never had a lot of people. There are only a few people in a sect. How can there be a sect leader? Zhang San took out an account book and flipped through it. He nodded and said, "Sure enough, Lao Si. What do you think we should do in this situation?" Three, together. Li Si's words were very concise, as if he didn't want to waste his breath. Look at this brain of mine. I just can't wrap my head around it. Zhang San slapped his forehead and looked at the three people with a smile. If that's the case, Then please accept the good punishment order." As soon as he finished speaking, his left hand shook and several black objects simultaneously flew out from his sleeve. With a paw sound, they fell side by side in front of the three people. They were three bronze plates, and they were neatly embedded into the stone slab on the ground. They were perfectly aligned with the ground, as if they had been inlaid with fine craftsmanship. Each plate was engraved with a smiling face, just like Zhang San's smile. When Yu Buchuan saw this from afar, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. The internal energy of Mount Hua's Qi sect had always been praised by the martial world, but even though he had cultivated the purple cloud divine art to this level, he could at most slap the bronze plate into a wooden board. It was impossible for him to hit a hard stone floor, let alone lift something so heavy as if it was light. The three people of the Qinghai sect also looked at each other in dismay. They knew that the opponent's internal energy was far higher than theirs, but if they were to willingly go to the Isle of Heroes, it would be a waste of their decades of reputation. What if we don't accept? The white slate fiend, Lao AI, smiled. 30 years ago, he didn't personally see the good punishment order, the evil emissary, in action, so he wasn't too sure of their martial arts. He had roamed the underworld for decades, so he naturally understood that a person's internal energy didn't necessarily mean that their overall strength was high. He thought that with the three of them combined, they might not lose to the two of them. Accept live, don't accept die. Li Si's voice didn't contain the slightest emotion, and everyone who heard it couldn't help but feel a chill in their stomachs. Then this old man would like to give it a try. The white slate fiend, Lao AI, grinned, and his body pounced towards Zhang San like a rock. Bowtie and Haomi seemed to have a telepathic connection and simultaneously used their lifetime's worth of martial arts to attack Zhang San. They clearly understood that as long as they could take care of one of them by surprise, the other would naturally not be a problem. Seeing that I'm smiling so kindly, you think I'm easy to bully? The fat on Zhang San's chubby face trembled, and his figure flashed, and he appeared next to the three people. Haomi didn't even have time to react before her shoulder was grabbed by the opponent, and she suddenly felt all the strength in her body disappear without a trace. She didn't even have time to panic before her entire body was lifted up by the opponent and thrown towards the white slate fiend, Lao AI, in midair. The white slate fiend, Lao AI, hastily withdrew his attack, but Haomi was like a cannonball, and he felt as if his chest had been struck by a hammer. He couldn't catch his breath, and both of them fell to the ground from midair, looking extremely embarrassed for a moment. However, after this torment, Zhang San was no longer able to block Bowtie's attack. He saw Bowtie use the power of the 10th layer of One Finger Zen, and in the blink of an eye, he had hit several of Zhang San's major acupuncture points. However, he didn't show the slightest bit of joy, because he felt as if he had hit a block of wood, and all his strength had no effect. Just as he was about to retreat, it was already too late, and Zhang San's other hand had already grabbed his arm. A sharp pain came from his hand, and Bowtie wailed in his heart. "I can't keep my arm, fortunately," Haomi promptly said. "Be lenient, we'll take it." Only then did Zhang San let go, and with a slight smile said, "That's more like it." Everyone saw him lift his leg as he spoke, and the next moment he appeared in front of the Huam Mountain Group's table. "What does Sect Master you think?" Yu Buchuan was startled by his movement technique, and hastily replied, "Since the two esteemed envoys have invited me with great hospitality, I will definitely attend the banquet on time." The Azure Sea Group's three people secretly cursed him for being shameless. He was obviously being coerced, and yet he still spoke in such a dignified manner. Just now, the three of them had lost without knowing why, and originally wanted to take advantage of the time when the two of them were exchanging blows, but who knew that Yu Buchuan's bones were so soft. Zhang San gave a thumbs up and said, "Many thanks to Sect Master Yu. We two brothers didn't have to return empty-handed." Seeing that it was about time, Li Si went straight to Limacho and said, "Scarlet Serpent Deity, Limacho, because of love, she destroyed the entire Lu family, and in the following years, she wantonly massacred people with the surname Hian Jianghu. She deserves to be executed." Chapter 560. 559 If you want to fight, then fight. Don't talk so much nonsense. Limacho swept the dust off her face and stood there arrogantly. The people in the restaurant secretly admired her. Although Limacho's reputation in Wulin wasn't very good, her performance today was much better than the three devils of Qinghai and Yubuchuan of Huashan. Miss Li is indeed a straightforward person. We brothers will not make things difficult for you and allow you to take your own life. Zhang Sen had his hands behind his back. His plump face had a very amiable smile, but his words were incomparably cold-blooded. What a joke. Even if I, Limacho, die, I will die knowing the truth. How could I be scared by your words and end my life? After watching their fight, Limacho knew very well that she could not even defeat the three demons of Qinghai's sect, but the other side easily subdued them. Their martial arts were really unfathomable, and she was definitely not their match. However, she had always been tenacious. Even if she met someone whose martial arts were far better than hers, she would still dare to fight. Perhaps this was why she was able to perform exceptionally well in actual combat. Stop! Mu Wanqing suddenly stood in front of Limacho and said in a clear voice, "Since you people say that you reward the good and punish the evil, why did you not kill the white-board evil star and the Lord of Qinghai? Why did you come to bully Sisterly? Although the white-board evil star and the Lord of Qinghai kill people like flies, it is limited to killing people in Jianghu. There is no right or wrong. Priestley is different. Many of the people he killed were ordinary people who did not know martial arts. Naturally, his sins are more serious." Zhang San explained. Mu Wanqing was speechless for a moment. In a moment of desperation, she blurted out, "If you kill her, the Golden Snake King will not let you go. I heard what you said before. Little girl, you don't need to lie to me. The Golden Snake King and Priest Li only met once. The reason why Priest Li risked her life to save you was to repay the Golden Snake King for saving her in the past. There is no personal relationship between the two," Zhang San said with a smile. Song Qing Shu, who was standing to the side, was secretly shocked. How did the people of the Isle of Heroes know everything? They even knew about something as insignificant as him saving Limacho's life. The information network behind them was too terrifying. "Little girl, I appreciate your kindness, but I, Limacho, have never needed a man's name to survive." Limacho pressed down on Mu Wanqing's shoulder, took out a book from her bosom, and handed it over to her. On it were the words 5 Poison Secrets. This book has detailed records of the 5 Poison Divine Palm training method, as well as the method to refine and detoxify the soul freezing silver needles. You must cultivate well, so that in the future you won't be bullied by some Jianghu thieves. When Mu Wanqing heard Limacho's tone as if she was giving her last words, she felt a lump in her throat and almost cried. Zhang San chuckled from the side and said, "Actually, it's useless even if you two have an affair. The Golden Snake King's reputation might scare others, but it might not scare us. One of the purposes of our trip is to invite the Golden Snake King to the Isle of Heroes. Your Excellency, you sure talk big." Suddenly, a lazy voice sounded in the restaurant. Because everyone was holding their breath in front of the two messengers, the restaurant was very quiet. Therefore, this voice was especially eye-catching. Everyone looked towards the source of the voice and saw that it was the young man who was wearing a mask who was speaking. "Do you want to die?" Mu Wanqing did not know why, but when she saw this masked young man, she felt a sense of familiarity. Subconsciously, she did not want anything to happen to him. Could it be that this brother has some advice for us? Zhang San turned around and looked at him with a smile. Song Qing Shu smiled faintly and said, "I wouldn't dare to give advice. However, although the two of you are highly skilled in martial arts, you might not be able to invite everyone." Zhang San was uncharacteristically not angry at all. He nodded and said, "That's right. Wudong Jinrenzhong and Shaolin, nameless holy monk, we can't invite them." The crowd could not help but burst into an uproar. Although Zhang San spoke politely on the surface, the meaning behind his words was extremely obvious. That was, in the entire martial arts world, apart from these two people, there was no one else they could not invite. How arrogant was this? I didn't expect the Isle of Heroes to also know about Nameless. Song Qingshu was secretly shocked. He quickly replied, "The two of you are too arrogant. There are many hidden dragons and crouching tigers in the world. Who knows how many people are better than the two of you? Give me an example." Li Si coldly interrupted him. Song Qingshu rolled his eyes and already had an idea. He pointed at Mu Wanqing and said with a smile, "For example, this lady's sweetheart, the Golden Snake King, Song Qingshu, can easily beat the two of you." Rumors in the martial arts world are often exaggerated. Zhang San smiled and shook his head. It was obvious that he did not believe it. Actually, it's very simple to verify whether the Golden Snake King's martial arts is superior or not. Song Qingshu's mouth revealed a trace of an enigmatic smile. Oh, the fat on Zhang San's face trembled. "I'd like to hear the details. I was fortunate enough to witness the Golden Snake King's heavenly face. Thanks to him, he did not mind and exchanged martial arts with me. Unfortunately, I was not talented and was defeated in one move." Song Qingshu's tone was full of regret. Hearing this, the others secretly laughed. "If you were like this, anyone who knew martial arts could defeat you in one move." Zhang San was bewildered. This person was pretending to be crazy. Could it be that he had something to rely on? Therefore, he said calmly, "Even if we defeat you in one move, how can we determine which one of us is superior?" No. It's actually very easy to determine." Song Qingshu suddenly stopped smiling and said in a low voice, "Because you can't defeat me." As soon as he said this, everyone in the field gasped. Yulingshan hurriedly pulled on Ning Zhong's sleeve. "Mother, is this dandy crazy?" Ning Zhongzi stared at that person thoughtfully. "I don't think so. Maybe he's some otherworldly master." Even though there was no trace of martial arts on him, Ning Zhongzi was a famous chivalrous woman in the martial arts world in the past. He still had this little bit of sensitivity. "Which sect are you from? Why are you making fun of us?" Zhang San was a cautious person. He could not see any trace of genuine qi on the person in front of him. However, the more it was so, the more he dared not to rush forward. Therefore, he decided to first ask about the person's master and sect. After all, they were familiar with the martial arts of all the sects in the martial arts world. "I'm from the ancient tomb sect," Song Qingshu said with a fist salute. Nonsense. Two voices sounded at the same time. One was Zhang San, and the other was Li Macho. Zhang San sneered and said, "The ancient tomb sect has always been passed down to females and not males. All the disciples in the sect are female. The only male disciple, Yanghua, is also one-armed. Since you have all four limbs, who are you?" "I'm the son-in-law of the ancient tomb sect," Song Qingshu replied with a smile. He was not lying. Icy Snow was a true descendant of the ancient tomb. This son-in-law of his was not a fake. "Shut up." Li Macho could not bear it anymore. She was so angry that her whole body was trembling. Now, the ancient tomb sect only had her, and Xiao Long knew, and Yanghua loved each other very much. Naturally, she would not find another man. This person in front of her kept saying that he was the son-in-law of the ancient tomb sect. "If you don't believe me, I can prove it to you." Song Qingshu smiled and waved his hands. The Huashan sect table, which was previously embedded in the stone floor by the two messengers. Inside, there was also the reward and punishment scrolls on the pillar next to Li Macho. It was as if they were being controlled by an invisible pair of hands as they flew towards Song Qingshu one after another. Song Qingshu clapped his hands up and down. The medallions flew up and down in the ball, controlled by his hands without any signs of falling. "Dragnet force," Li Macho could not help but exclaim. The essence of the ancient tomb sect's martial arts was lightness and agility. This dragnet force was the foundation of all the martial arts of the ancient tomb sect. How could she not recognize it? Zhang San's mind was racing. Just now, the opponent sucked the medallions over. What kind of martial arts did he use? Xiao Feng's dragon catcher hand? Big Wheel Wisdom King's crane control art? Or Renwushing's star sucking? Zhang San's mind was filled with speculations, but he quickly eliminated them one by one. Song Qingshu's move had shocked everyone present. No one had expected that the young master, who was regarded as a playboy and looked like a fat sheep waiting to be slaughtered, was actually an expert who had concealed his strength. Yuling Shan clapped her hands excitedly and shook her mother's arm excitedly. "Mother, it was just as you expected." Mu Wanqing stared at Song Qingshu without blinking. Thinking of all the things that happened before, especially when he pretended to be injured and pressed down on her, her heart was filled with anger. This scoundrel kept pretending to be crazy and taking advantage of me. How dare he? Since I have proven my identity, I will return these medallions to everyone. Song Qingshu casually waved his hand, and the medallions returned to their original positions. Song Qingshu took the last medallion with a crying face and said, "As for this one, I will accept it on your behalf." Song Qingshu first used his divine reflection chi to heat up the bronze medallion. Then he suddenly used his 9 chi to freeze it. Finally, he rubbed his hands together, and the medallion, reward kindness and punishment evil, immediately shattered into powder and scattered with the wind. Everyone's eyes widened. Even the experienced and knowledgeable Zhang San and Li Si were indescribably shocked. It wasn't that they hadn't seen people with powerful inner strength in so many years. In the past, the head of the Qingchang sect, Taoist Sushan, used inner strength to melt the bronze medallion into a pile of scrap iron. But they had never seen him directly crush the bronze medallion into powder like this. Enjoying everyone's shocked gazes, Song Qingshu was secretly pleased. Learning mathematics, physics, and chemistry well, not only would he not be afraid to travel the world, but he would also be able to do it in another world. When metal intersected with hot and cold, it was extremely easy to shatter. Therefore, Song Qingshu actually didn't need to spend too much energy to do all of this easily. In an instant, everyone was shocked. What kind of inner strength is this? Zhang Sen asked in a deep voice. Of course, it's the ancient tomb sect's Jade Women's Heart Sutra. Song Qingshu lied without even blinking. The Jade Women's Heart Sutra has this kind of power. Zhang Sen was puzzled, but he also knew that good inner strength didn't necessarily mean good martial arts. If he and Li Si joined forces, the other party definitely wouldn't be able to win. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but feel relieved. The strength of your inner strength is really admirable. Us two brothers know that our martial arts are far inferior to yours. Therefore, we can only join forces and ask for advice from you. Mu Wanqing immediately became anxious. Do you still have any shame? 30 years ago, you ran amok in the Central Plains. Now, you want to bully a young junior with numbers? Miss, your words have been investigated. Zhang San's expression changed. In the path of martial arts, those who have reached the highest rank are the first. How can it be divided according to age? But if you really can't stand it, you can come down and help him. That way, won't the number of people on both sides be equal? Today, there's only one chapter. Last night, I dropped my computer and the hard disk was damaged. I need to spend some time to rearrange the information. End of this chapter. Chapter 561. Zhang Sen had a good idea. Anyway, with Mu Wanqing's skills, even if she joined forces with this mysterious young man, there would be no threat. Maybe during the fight, the young man would be restrained in order to protect her. Mu Wanqing couldn't help but be speechless. How could she not know this? For a moment, she didn't know how to answer and stood there looking extremely embarrassed. Who knew that Song Qingshu didn't seem to be aware of the other's sinister intentions? Since you say so, then I will respectfully accept. After speaking, he came in front of Mu Wanqing, his eyes full of smiles. Miss, can you do me the honor of helping me? Mu Wanqing's heart jumped inexplicably from his gaze, and she couldn't help but hesitate. But my martial arts are too low. I'm afraid I'll drag you down. Why would that be? Song Qingshu smiled slightly. To be able to fight with such a beautiful girl will only stimulate the hormones in a man's body and greatly increase his fighting strength. What are hormones? Mu Wanqing listened in confusion and subconsciously asked in a daze. It's something that makes men and women attracted to each other. Noticing Mu Wanqing's slight change in expression, Song Qingshu hurriedly stopped while he was ahead. "Miss, what martial arts are you best at?" Mu Wanqing's aggro bar was successfully emptied. Thinking that she was about to face the world-famous envoys of virtue and punishment, she didn't have much confidence. Sleeve arrows. She thought about it, but couldn't think of which martial arts she knew could pose a threat to people at their level. In the end, she could only casually say one. "That's good. Miss, use the sleeve arrows to shoot them later," Song Qingshu encouraged. But Mu Wanqing opened her mouth and wanted to say that her sleeve arrows might not even be able to hurt the Qinghai owl. So would it be useful for virtue and punishment? But just as she was about to say it, she felt that saying it would boost their morale and affect their morale. For a moment, she was stunned and didn't know what to do. Sleeve arrows, no. Even though Li Si was silent and his face was as cold as ice, everyone could clearly see the ridicule on his face. Mu Wanqing was usually someone who feared nothing. Being looked down upon by him, she couldn't help but be furious. She raised her hand and shot a sleeve arrow. Li Si's face was filled with disdain. He did not dodge, nor did he stretch out his hand to block. He retreated as if he was taking a stroll. The crowd quickly saw a spectacle. Li Si retreated step by step, very slowly, but the sleeve dart that shot out was always a few feet away from him, unable to catch up to him. One side was extremely slow, while the other side was extremely fast. However, the extremely fast sleeve dart could not catch up to the extremely slow Li Si. This kind of contradictory visual impact made everyone's eyes sore. Song Qingshu smiled indifferently. He gently waved his sleeve, and an invisible force surged towards the tail of the sleeve dart. Zhang Sen had been paying attention to his movements. Seeing this, he couldn't help but be alarmed. "Old four, be careful." Li Si was slightly taken aback. Before he could react, the sleeve dart in front of him suddenly sped up. Everyone only saw an afterimage flash past, followed by a dull grunt. Everyone looked in that direction and saw Li Si clutching his shoulder. Blood slowly seeped out from the gaps between his fingers. The sleeve dart was completely embedded in his shoulder, leaving only a few feathers of the tail exposed. The entire inn suddenly became incomparably quiet. Everyone had witnessed Zhang San's martial arts just now. He easily defeated 3 top-notch experts from the Qinghai sect by himself. Li Si was his companion, and their martial arts were almost on par. Moreover, he was leisurely retreating just now, but he was actually faster than the sleeve dart. This had already subverted the perception of most people present. However, it was this kind of invincible expert who was actually injured by the masked young man in one move. The Jianghu experts present felt that they had experienced too many shocks today. Their hearts were shaken to the point of numbness. "Mother, this person is only a few years older than me. How can he be so powerful?" Yuling Shan's little mouth was wide open. It was obvious that she had yet to recover from the shock. Ning Zhongze was obviously not much better than her. He was covering his mouth in shock. She almost cried out just now. Although she had guessed that this mysterious masked man's martial arts must be very high, she did not expect it to be to this extent. Shan as the saying goes, there's always someone better than you out there. There are always some geniuses in this world. However, you don't have to be discouraged. Practice the martial arts of Mount Hua well. You can also become a heroine of the generation. Oh, Yuling Shan was obviously very dissatisfied with this answer. She thought to herself, no matter how much I practice, I will never be able to catch up to him, let alone myself. I think even my father is far from being a match for him. She absolutely did not dare to say these words out loud. She could only pout and sulk there. When Lin Pingji saw her expression, he could almost guess what she was thinking. He hurriedly comforted her. "Senior Marshal sister, our Mount Hua sect has countless experts throughout the generations. The founding ancestor, Elder Chen Tuan, was even recognized by the world at that time. Now, it's just that we, the younger generation, have not practiced our martial arts to perfection. There is no need to belittle ourselves." Yu Buqian listened and nodded to himself. This child Pingji indeed has the demeanor of a great general. He is many times more mature and steady than that unfilial Ling Hu Chong. If not, he will be the next best candidate for Mount Hua. Sigh, what a pity. Everyone in the Mount Hua sect had their own thoughts. Song Qing-shu had already moved closer to Mu Wanqing's ear and softly said, I told you that Miss Sleeve Dart would definitely work. Although she clearly knew that the person next to her had done something. Seeing Li Si injured by her sleeve dart, Mu Wanqing could not help but be excited. Her originally slightly pale complexion was slowly dyed with a layer of red. Hey, my sleeve dart is poisonous. You guys better find a place to heal your injuries quickly. Mu Wanqing raised her chin and said in a crisp voice. She thought that as long as these two people left, Li Macho would also be safe. It's just a small poison, no harm. Li Si stretched out his foot and stamped on the ground. It was as if there was an endless stream of energy traveling from the ground to his body. Li Si's body was like a light boat that shook along with the waves. When that stream of energy traveled to his shoulder, the sleeve dart on it was forcibly forced out with a trace of blood. In an instant, it was nailed to a nearby pillar. Good kung fu. Song Qing-shu could not help but praise. These two people's Nigong was very different from the martial arts of the Central Plains, but it similarly had its own unique points. However, the other people in the restaurant did not think so. Instead, they all rolled their eyes and looked at him. They thought to themselves, you're praising the other party's kung fu, but the other party was injured in one move. Isn't this just another way to praise yourself? Zhang San and Li Si also had the same thoughts. They were secretly angry, but they did not show it. Zhang San saw that Li Si was not seriously injured and walked over with a smile. So, it's the Golden Snake King, Mr. Song, who has been in the limelight recently. No wonder you have such good kung fu. Chapter 562. Last time, he defeated Zhuo Linshan at the peak of Mount Tai. I thought it was just a fluke. I didn't expect his martial arts to have reached such a high level. This won't do. I have to get the Bixia Sword Manual as soon as possible. Only then will I have the capital to fight against these people. Yu Buchuan's eyes flickered. So it's my benefactor. No wonder his martial arts are so high. Lin Pingji's face was full of joy. Recently, he had been practicing the sword technique that Song Qing-shu taught him. He could clearly feel that his sword technique had improved greatly. Seeing that there was hope for revenge, he had already regarded Song Qing-shu as his benefactor. Yu Lingshan, on the other hand, blushed. She thought of the handsome young man who teased her on Mount Hua. She couldn't help but be absent-minded for a moment. I haven't seen him for a long time. Unexpectedly, that mischievous young man already has the temperament of a great master. No wonder he helped me. But this time, not only did I not repay his kindness, but I also owe him one more time. This is really... Li Macho thought of the fact that he claimed to be the son-in-law of Ancient Tomb Sect. Her expression gradually became very strange. Mu Wanqing bit her lips and stared at Song Qing-shu. Tears welled up in her eyes. No wonder I always felt that he was so familiar. This bastard, he always pretended to be stupid to tease me. Seeing everyone's expression, Song Qing-shu suddenly panicked. This was not the script. He had the intention to hide his identity. Naturally, he didn't want to reveal his whereabouts. So, he braced himself and said, no wonder you have this illusion. Golden Snake King's martial arts are really inhuman. While speaking, he revealed an expression of reminiscence. Previously, I heard that he defeated all the heroes in the world in the Golden Snake meeting. Then, people in Jianghu said that he was a god. I was not convinced, so I personally went to the Golden Snake camp. Unfortunately, I was defeated in one move. Listening to his words, the group of people became uncertain. Zhang Sen sneered. One move? With your martial arts, how could you be defeated in one move? In fact, he wasn't sure of the identity of the other party. He was just filtering the famous young experts in Jianghu in his mind. Just now, he deliberately called Song Qing-shu to test him, who knew that the other party's words would make him doubtful. At our level, we'll know the result the moment we exchange blows. What's the difference between one move and 100 moves? Song Qing-shu sighed mysteriously. He noticed that everyone was looking at him with adoration and that he had fooled them into a daze. He immediately felt very pleased in his heart. Zhang San and Li Si looked at each other, deep in thought. This person was right. At a certain level, victory or defeat was already decided from the start. There is no difference between exchanging 100 moves or one move. Is the Golden Snake King's martial arts really that high? Zhang San asked, unwilling to give up. If you don't believe me, feel free to give a try. Song Qing Shu smiled faintly. Zhang San and Li Si shook their heads subconsciously. What kind of joke was this? They couldn't even beat this person in front of them, so why would they go and ask for trouble? It seemed that the Golden Snake Battalion would be removed from the list of targets. No, the ancient tomb sect's martial arts have their limits. Even if Lin Xiaoying came back to life, she might not have your skills. Zhang San suddenly thought of something and stared at him with burning eyes. Who are you? Could it be that you know the ancient tomb sect's martial arts like the back of your hand? You know the limits of the ancient tomb sect's martial arts? Song Qing Shu couldn't help but sneer. Zhang San's face showed a trace of pride, and he said with assurance, although the ancient tomb sect's martial arts have their own system, they are not considered a big sect. The number of martial arts in the sect is limited. The foundation of the ancient tomb sect's martial arts is the dragnet force, and their fist techniques are only the beauty fist technique, which is not worth mentioning. Although the jade maiden sword technique and silver chain golden bell technique are not bad, they cannot be considered top-level martial arts. As for the ancient tomb sect's most profound Jade Maiden Heart Sutra, although it is unique, the process of cultivating it is filled with danger. Compared to the top internal energy techniques of the other sects, Yi Jin Jing, Nine Yang Shun Gong, Nani Manual, Sunflower Treasure Manual, Tai, they are still inferior. On the other hand, the ancient tomb sect's hidden weapons techniques are quite unique, such as the JB Needle and Soul Freezing Silver Needle. Seeing that Zhang San was so familiar with the ancient tomb sect's martial arts, Li Macho was shocked. The ancient tomb sect had always been mysterious, and the disciples of the sect almost never appeared in Jianghu. Even though they kept such a low profile, he still knew everything about the sect. This Isle of Heroes was really too scary. After Zhang San finished listing the ancient tomb sect's martial arts, he said in a confident tone, but no matter which sect's martial arts, they are not as powerful as yours. Even Li Macho nodded to herself. She had seen her master fight before, and her master's martial arts were probably not as good as the two emissaries Zhang Shan and Feng Wu, not to mention this mysterious masked man. She saw that Song Qing Shu was unhurried, and said with a faint smile, martial arts are only a supplementary function. The final result depends on the person using it. In the past, Zhao Kuangyin, the founder of the sect, used an ordinary set of fists to defeat everyone under the heavens. Lin Yuan-tu of the Fu Wei Escort Company also used an ordinary set of BCS swordplay to sweep across Tiannan. Doesn't this show that the person who learns martial arts is more important than the martial arts itself? Song Qing Shu deliberately mentioned the BCS swordplay in order to prevent any mistakes from happening. He wanted to subtly warn Yu Buchuan and Lin Pingji, so that they would not be as obsessed with the BCS swordplay as they were in the original, and cause one tragedy after another. Who knew that Zhang San would directly refute? Zhao Kuangyin is one thing. He is a dragon among men, but the Bixia swordplay that Lin Yuan-tu used to sweep across Tian Nan is not the half-baked Bixia swordplay that Lin Jinan used to easily exterminate his sect. Suddenly, he seemed to have realized something, and looked at the people of Mount Hua sect, and stopped talking. His words stirred up a storm in Yu Buchuan and Lin Pingji's hearts. My guess was right. There are two sets of the Bixia swordplay. One is the real one, and the one that Lin Jinan practiced is a fake one. Yu Buchuan's hands and his sleeves trembled with excitement. As long as he had the Bixia swordplay, he would be able to lead Mount Hua sect to stand proudly in the world of martial arts, and he would no longer have to look at other people's faces. Lin Pingji was also excited, and secretly vowed in his heart, Father, Mother, I must find the real Bixia swordplay, and wash away all the humiliation that our Fu-Wei escort company has suffered. Noticing their expressions, Song Qing-shu secretly sighed. Man proposes, God disposes. Forget it. Let nature take its course. Song Qing-shu coughed. Although you are very familiar with the martial arts of the ancient tomb sect, you are only at the beginner level. The martial arts of the ancient tomb sect are as vast as the sea, and not just what you have mentioned. The most profound martial arts of the ancient tomb sect, such as Guanin's lotus sitting, Dong Xuanzi's 18 techniques, Ice and Fire 9 heavens, and so on, are not something you are qualified to experience. So, I will let you experience the ancient tomb sect's pure heart of the jade maiden swordplay. Pure heart of the jade maiden swordplay? Zhang San and Li Si looked at each other. They had never heard of any of the martial arts that Song Qing-shu had mentioned. Even Li Macho was confused, wondering when the ancient tomb sect had such strange martial arts. Song Qing-shu held back his laughter and walked in front of Li Macho. Fairy, you came from the ancient tomb sect, so you must know the pure heart of the jade maiden swordplay. Of course. Li Macho nodded. Chapter 563. Although she had never seen this kind of strange etiquette before, some things were self-taught. Noticing the other's sincere gaze and the hand stretched out in front of her, Li Macho's heart inexplicably jumped, as if she had returned to the throbbing of her youth. But of course, she wouldn't really hold his hand. She could only deliberately avert her gaze and shyly reply, "But I've never learned this sword technique." If someone familiar with Li Macho saw her bashful appearance at this moment, their eyes would probably pop out of their sockets. It's okay, as long as you know the Jade Maiden sword technique. Song Qing-shu finished speaking and turned to look at Zhang San and Li Si. You wouldn't mind if I found a helper, right? Go ahead. Zhang San and Li Si looked at each other and saw through each other's thoughts. This person was really too mysterious. Even if the two of them worked together, they wouldn't have absolute confidence in winning. But if the other side added Li Macho, their chances of winning would be much higher. After all, the two of them had been working together for many years. When they attacked, their minds were connected and they could display the effect of 1 + 1 is greater than 2. On the other hand, Li Macho's martial arts were far inferior to theirs. Moreover, it was her first time working together with the other side, so it was inevitable that she would be unfamiliar with it. Since we're going to use sword techniques against the enemy, we should at least have 2 swords. While Song Qing-shu was muttering to himself, Mu Wanqing had already handed over the long sword in her hand. Her cheeks were flushed. "You can use my sword." "Many thanks, Mississippi." Song Qing-shu's smile made Mu Wanqing's heart skip a beat. She couldn't help but think, I'll slowly settle the score with you after I beat back the enemy. The other people in the restaurant had already been convinced by Song Qing-shu's words that he really was some son-in-law of the ancient tomb sect. But Mu Wanqing had been with Song Qing-shu for so long. How could she not know what kind of personality he had? It was fine that she hadn't thought of it before, but after Zhang San's reminder, her heart was like a mirror. The more she looked, the more she felt that the person in front of her and the person in her memories overlapped. But I'm still missing a sword. Song Qing-shu scanned Li Macho's body from head to toe. Apart from the horsetail whisk, where else could she hide her sword? Li Macho felt extremely embarrassed when he looked her up and down. Just as she was about to get angry, Song Qing-shu's figure had already appeared in front of the Huashan table. He cupped his hands and said, "Since we're going to borrow swords to compete, we must get a good result. I have heard that among the 5 mountain sword sects, Huashan is the most respected one. I would like to ask if there is anyone from your sect who is willing to lend me a sword." The strength that Song Qing-shu had displayed before was obvious to all. Hearing him speak so highly of the Huashan sect, Yu Buchuan was so happy that his heart felt like it was smeared with honey. However, as the leader of a sect, it was not convenient for him to give away his sword so easily. While he was hesitating, he heard Lin Pingji say, "If you don't mind, you can use my sword." Then he took off his sword and respectfully handed it to Song Qing-shu. From Lin Pingji's point of view, even if the other party wasn't his benefactor, he was still someone who had a close relationship with his benefactor. There was no difference between lending it to him and lending it to his benefactor. Thank you, young hero Lin. Just as Song Qing-shu was about to take the sword, Yu Lingshan interrupted him and said, "No, little Lin, I won't allow you to lend it to him." Why? Lin Pingji was very confused. He was even a little dissatisfied with her stubbornness. Yu Lingshan secretly glanced at Li Macho and said with gritted teeth, "I don't care. You can't lend your sword. If you want to borrow it, then borrow mine." Then she handed her beloved sword to Song Qing-shu. He handed the sword to Song Qing-shu and said, "This sword is a famous treasured sword of Mount Hua. It is called Jade Water. It can cut through iron as if it were mud. It will be of great help to you during the martial arts competition." This, Song Qing-shu couldn't help but hesitate for a moment. Yu Lingshan suddenly thought of something and added, "That's right. I will only lend this sword to you. You are not allowed to give it to other women." As she finished speaking, she glanced at Li Macho. It was obvious that she was still holding a grudge against Li Macho for throwing a chicken drumstick at him. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but laugh. After all this time, Yu Lingshan was actually jealous. She was worried that Li Macho would lend his sword to Lin Pingji. Seeing that Yu Lingshan was forcing Song Qing-shu to use her sword, Mu Wanqing immediately panicked. However, just as she opened her mouth, she closed it again. Her expression was very stubborn. If he has the intention, I don't need to say anything to reject him. If he doesn't have the intention, what's the point of reminding him? Song Qing-shu naturally didn't know that his next choice would affect his image in a young girl's heart. However, he still turned to look at Mu Wanqing and rejected her with a smile. "There's no need. I want to use this sword." As he finished speaking, he left Yu Lingshan behind and walked straight to Ning Zhongzi. "Madam Yu, can I borrow your sword?" Ning Zhongzi was slightly stunned, but she quickly reacted. She smiled gently and said, "Of course." As she finished speaking, she handed the sword to Song Qing-shu. Looking at the fair and slender fingers in front of him, Song Qing-shu couldn't help but let his imagination run wild. If he secretly touched it now, would she become angry? However, Song Qing-shu only dared to think about it. Right now, everyone was watching him. Moreover, Yu Buqian was right next to him. It was too risky to do so. "Thank you, madam." Song Qing-shu took the sword and smiled bitterly to himself. This inner demon of his seemed to be getting more and more unbridled. Could it be that this was his true nature? Song Qing-shu handed Ning Zhongzi's long sword to Li Macho. Seeing her uneasy expression, he encouraged her. "Fairy, you don't have to worry too much. During the battle later, you don't have to think about anything. You just have to pay attention to what I say and use the corresponding Jade Maiden Sword technique." Li Macho took the sword and nodded slightly, but she wasn't very confident. Seeing that they were ready, Zhang San and Li Si looked at each other and said, "Be careful, you too." They tacitly took the initiative and attacked Li Macho. Zhang San and Li Si had thought it through. With this mysterious person's martial arts, even if they suddenly attacked, they might not be able to hurt him. However, attacking Li Macho was different. Although Li Macho was a famous demoness in Jianghu, her martial arts were still inferior to the two of them. With the two of them working together, Li Macho could only be killed in a second. Their strategy was to surround the enemy and attack the reinforcements. Attacking Li Macho was just a pretense. Their real goal was to attract Song Qing-shu to come to her rescue. No matter how high a person's martial arts was, if he had to protect others at all times, his own defense would naturally be correspondingly lax. Then, they would have a chance. This wasn't some crafty plot. It was an open and above-board plan. Since Song Qing-shu had stood up for Li Macho, he wouldn't leave Li Macho alone. Therefore, Zhang San and Li Si weren't worried that Song Qing-shu wouldn't fall into their trap. Song Qing-shu, of course, understood their intentions, but he didn't care. He softly said to Li Macho, "Fairy, wandering to the ends of the earth." Li Macho was startled. Of course she knew this stance, but this stance was one of the most dangerous stances of the Jade Maiden Sword technique. If she used this stance right now, when it came to swordsmanship, his sword would only stab into the air a few feet away, and his entire body would be exposed to Tom, Dick, and Harry's attacks. Li Macho clenched her teeth. She didn't know why, but she felt that this person beside her wouldn't harm her. After a slight hesitation, she followed Song Qingshu's instructions and stabbed the air diagonally. But her body had already faintly felt the energy of Zhang San and Li Si's attacks, and her face was deathly pale. Song Qingshu gave a slight smile and stabbed the sword diagonally towards Li Macho's side. This was also the wandering to the ends of the earth of the Chuanjin sword stance. Although the two stances had the same name, the style was very different. Zhang San and Li Si saw that Song Qingshu had indeed fallen into their trap and were secretly delighted. They left Li Si to continue attacking Li Macho and restrict Song Qingshu. Zhang San's stance changed, and he suddenly attacked from the other side towards Song Qingshu's side, completely disregarding Li Macho. But when Zhang San was halfway through changing his stance, he suddenly discovered that 3 inches in front of his chest, there was a long sword glinting with a cold light. It was as if the sword was waiting for him to collide with it. He couldn't help but be shocked, and hastily changed his stance and retreated, pulling Li Si along. Li Si also had the same experience. He felt the tip of Song Qingshu's sword appear at his waist without any warning. Luckily, he had Zhang San's help and was able to retreat. After the two of them steadied themselves, they looked down at their bodies with lingering fear. They discovered that they had already been struck by the sword. Luckily, they had dodged in time, and the sword had just passed by them, only cutting their clothes. Even so, they were still covered in cold sweat. Li Macho couldn't help but be stunned. She had never thought that she would be able to force back an expert like Zhang San with one sword. It wasn't that she hadn't seen the Chuanjin sword stance before, but in her opinion, although the Chuanjin sword stance and the Jade Maiden sword stance were exquisite, their power wasn't enough. Because of this, she basically switched to using a horsetail whisk. She never would have thought that the Chuanjin sword stance and the Jade Maiden sword stance would have such power when used together. "Fairy, let's continue." Song Qingshu smiled at her and said, "Before the flowers and under the moon." Everyone on the field saw his stance move from top to bottom, imitating the scene of an ice wolf flying through the air and a clear light covering the ground. Li Macho's sword trembled, like a flower fluttering in the wind, slashing back and forth. Zhang San and Li Si's eyes were dazzled. They didn't know where her sword stance was coming from, so they could only jump back and dodge. Song Qingshu called out again, "Drinking wine." He raised the sword hilt and pointed the sword downwards, as if he was pouring wine from a jug. Li Macho was now in a good state and smoothly coordinated with the stance. The tip of the sword turned upwards, pointing towards her lips, as if she was raising a cup to drink. Zhang San and Li Si saw that the sword stances of the two were becoming stranger and stranger, but they were coordinating with each other, and all the flaws were covered up by the person next to them. The more the two fought, the more shocked they became, and thought, the world is so big, there really are many capable people. How could our Isle of Heroes have thought of such unimaginable sword stances? AI, we've really become frogs at the bottom of a well. We've underestimated the heroes of the world. Their morale dropped, and they looked like they were about to lose. Everyone on the field saw Song Qingshu and Li Macho exchange stances. Each stance seemed to contain some sort of romance, such as playing the zither and playing the flute, or sweeping the snow and making tea, or playing chess under the pine tree, or playing the cranes by the pond. Towards the end, it didn't seem like the two were participating in a dangerous battle, but were having a romantic conversation. Li Macho seemed to feel something, and her face became redder and redder. Outside the field, Mu Wanqing was so angry that her whole body was trembling. This womanizer, even in this kind of situation, he still doesn't forget to flirt. I'm so angry. End of chapter. Chapter 564. Li Macho had mixed feelings. In the beginning, she did not have the confidence to use this set of swordplay. Firstly, it was too polite, and secondly, she was too reliant on him. She could not use many of the exquisite parts of the swordplay. But with Song Qingshu's help, and the obvious effect of the pure heart sword, Li Macho's confidence sword, and her cooperation with her opponent gradually improved. But as the two of them became more and more in sync, Li Macho slowly experienced an indescribable feeling. It was as if she was shy, but also as if she was distant. It was as if she was affectionate, but also worried about her gains and losses. This feeling awakened Li Macho's long-forgotten memories. When she first came out of the ancient tomb and met that person, it was the same feeling. It turned out that the founder of the ancient tomb sect, Lin Xiaoying, was disappointed in love and died in the ancient tomb. She was well-versed in both literature and martial arts. She was omnipotent in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting, but she still fantasized about love like an ordinary woman. More than once, she fantasized about fighting alongside her lover, Wang Chongyang. Unfortunately, fate made fools of people, and they were not fated to be together. She could only put all her love into this set of swordplay, of harmonious swordplay. Wang Chongyang used the Chuanjin swordplay, so she correspondingly modified the pure heart sword to match him. The combination of the two swordplay produced a brand new swordplay, the pure heart sword. Unfortunately, Lin Xiaoying never had the chance to use this swordplay. Instead, it benefited the descendants of the ancient tomb sect. Zhang San and Li Si suddenly jumped out of the fighting ring, cupped their hands, and admitted defeat. Today, we have witnessed the ancient tomb sect's secret art. We admire you very much. There is no need to continue. We have lost this time. The two did not know the origin of this swordplay. Seeing their opponent's strange moves, they knew that the most powerful move had not been used. If they continued fighting, they might lose their lives. So they quickly made a decision to admit defeat before it was obvious that they were going to lose. People from the Central Plains valued their reputation the most, so they were too embarrassed to continue fighting. You were just following orders. Song Qingshu thought for a moment. You two can do as you please. Of course, Song Qingshu was not afraid of the Isle of Heroes. It was just that there was no enmity between the two of them. He did not want to offend such a mysterious force by killing the two messengers. Moreover, he was very curious about the intelligence network of the Isle of Heroes. Keeping the two messengers alive would be useful in the future. Zhang San and Li Si looked at each other. Their eyes were full of joy. They cupped their fists and said, "Thank you." In the future, if we meet people from the ancient tomb sect, we will definitely avoid them. That won't be necessary. I'll take over the ancient tomb sect's rewards and punishments. In the future, I'll find some time to visit the Dragon and Wood Island Masters in the South Sea. Song Qingshu secretly thought, Xiao Long knew, brother-in-law helped you to avoid a disaster again. Who asked you to be my sister-in-law? If your excellency comes, the Isle of Heroes will definitely welcome you with open arms. Unlike the arrogant way in which they had left behind the tokens to reward good and punish evil, this time, Zhang San and Li Si respectfully presented the tokens to Song Qingshu with both hands, causing the others to be envious and jealous. Song Qingshu nodded slightly and took the rewards and punishments token. He did not expect that Zhang San and Li Si would be so shocked. They thought that Song Qingshu wanted to challenge the Isle of Heroes. They could not help but worry. Although the two island masters' martial arts were unfathomable, the person in front of them was also very mysterious. It was better to inform the two island masters as soon as possible. Because of his careless words, the rewards and punishments envoys changed their plans and immediately returned to the Isle of Heroes to inform the Isle of Heroes. This was something that Song Qingshu had never expected. After the two envoys left, Song Qingshu turned around and looked at Li Macho. If it wasn't for your cooperation, I would not have won so easily. Thinking of the sword technique that was almost ordinary, Li Macho felt embarrassed. She quickly changed the topic. What is the relationship between you and the ancient tomb sect? Why do you know so much about the ancient tomb sect? After all, even she did not know about the existence of the pure heart of Jade Maiden swordsmanship. How did this man in front of her know? Song Qingshu smiled and did not explain. Instead, he said, Fairy, this is a long story. I will slowly explain it to you in the future. Now, Let me return the sword to Miss Ning of the Mount Hua sect. Li Macho quickly handed the sword to him. Unexpectedly, when he took the sword, he lightly touched the back of her hand. Her heart skipped a beat. She did not know if he did it intentionally or unintentionally. Even Li Macho herself did not realize that if it was any other man, not to mention touching her skin, even if he looked at her a few more times, she would have drawn her sword and killed him. She would not have thought about whether he did it intentionally or unintentionally. Song Qingshu secretly praised her. The ancient tomb sect really had a good eye for disciples. Every disciple of the sect was worthy of the 4 words, ice skin and jade bones. Although this Li Macho had a fierce reputation, her appearance was not inferior to Xiao Longnu's. In fact, she was even more beautiful. Actually, with Song Qingshu's current martial arts and status, he could easily get any woman he wanted. However, Song Qingshu enjoyed the process of chasing and conquering more. Li Macho was a woman who had been hurt by love. She had long closed her heart. Naturally, she would not throw herself into his arms. Therefore, Song Qingshu had to work harder and take the initiative to flirt with her. Seeing that Li Macho did not fall out with him on the spot, Song Qingshu could not help but smile. It seemed like there was a chance. As Song Qingshu thought about it, he walked to the table of the Mount Hua sect. "Thank you, madam, for your precious sword. We were able to defeat the 2 messengers of Zhongshan and Fangwu and return them to the rightful owner." It was a pity that Song Qingshu's mind was still thinking about how he flirted with Li Macho. When Ning Zhongze received the sword, he secretly held his opponent's fair and jade-like palm. His martial arts were extremely high. Coupled with the cover of his sleeve, no one could see any flaws in his move. Although he could hide it from others, he could not hide it from the person in question. Ning Zhongze did not expect him to be so bold and frivolous. Her cheeks turned red immediately. Just as she was about to fly into a rage, she suddenly realized that this person's martial arts was so high that he was like a demon. Now that the Mount Hua sect was suffering from internal and external troubles, Senior Martial Brother was racking his brains every day. How could she invite such a great enemy for him? Young Master's martial arts are unfathomable. Even without my sword, you can easily defeat the 2 of them. Ning Zhongze tried to withdraw his hand several times. However, he was helplessly held tightly by the other party. How could he move an inch? At first, Song Qingshu was regretting being too abrupt. However, he did not expect Ning Zhongze to not fall out with him on the spot. Instead, he was secretly struggling. This triggered the evil interest in his heart. Not only did he not let go of his hand, he even used his fingers to stroke the skin of her hand. Ning Zhongze did not expect him to be so insatiable. Just as she was about to fly into a rage, a strange feeling suddenly welled up in the depths of her body. It made her feel weak and unbearably hot at the same time. Song Qingshu's current methods were brilliant. The gentle stroke of his fingertips coupled with a faint wisp of joyful genuine qi was enough to make Ning Zhongze's body extremely sensitive. Noticing that Ning Zhongze's eyes were about to tear up, Song Qingshu released her hand at the right time. This chapter is not over. Please turn the page. It is only interesting when it is done in secret, and if it is discovered by others, it is rather dull and uninteresting. Ning Zhongze finally got a chance to breathe. The rapid rise and fall of her plump chest also gradually calmed down. Just as she was about to say something to Song Qingshu, who knew that he had already turned around and left, leaving behind a hateful silhouette. "Junior Martial Sister, what's wrong?" Noticing Ning Zhongze's abnormality, Yu Buchuan could not help but ask curiously. "No, nothing," Ning Zhongze answered subconsciously. Her expression instantly became incomparably complicated. The conversation between the husband and wife did not escape Song Qingshu's eyes and ears. Seeing that Ning Zhongze chose to hide it from her husband, Song Qingshu's lips couldn't help but curl into a meaningful smile. This kind of game seemed to be quite interesting. "Miss, thank you for your treasured sword." Song Qingshu returned to Mu Wanqing's side. Looking at her sparkling and flawless wrist, he could not help but secretly compare. Li Macho's hand was incomparably soft and smooth, while Ning Zhong's hand was so soft that it seemed to have no bones. He wondered what Mu Wanqing's hand felt like. Miss, don't I have a name?" Mu Wanqing pouted and snatched the sword back. She did not leave any opportunity for Song Qing-shu to take advantage of her. Song Qing-shu could only smile bitterly and say, "I still haven't asked for your name? Do you really not know, or are you pretending not to know?" Mu Wanqing stared at him with a burning gaze. Song Qing-shu's heart skipped a beat. He shifted his gaze unnaturally and said, "Of course it's fake. Oh, it's a slip of the tongue. Of course I really don't know." Mu Wanqing instantly flew into a rage. She raised her sword and stabbed at him. "I'll kill you, you heartless thief." Song Qing-shu hurriedly dodged backward and barely dodged the sword that caught him off guard. He couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. "What the heck? Don't tell me you've killed someone." Hearing this familiar yet strange catchphrase, Mu Wanqing bit her lip. "I'm going to kill you." She stabbed at him again. She was completely focused on attacking and did not defend herself at all. Li Macho's figure moved slightly, but in the end, she did not take a step forward. She could see that the difference in their martial arts was like heaven and earth. Mu Wanqing also used such an unguarded and desperate move. The mysterious masked man only needed to strike casually to subdue her. But the strange thing was that the mysterious masked man was being chased and screamed, but he did not attack Mu Wanqing at all. How could Li Macho not understand what was going on? Then she thought of the heartless thief that Mu Wanqing mentioned. The relationship between the two was obvious. As an outsider, how could she intervene? Sure enough, only villains and women are hard to deal with. "I'll leave first." Song Qing-shu knew that if he continued to stay here, the image of an expert that he had painstakingly built up would completely become a joke. He hurriedly flew out of the restaurant. Mu Wanqing couldn't help but stomp her feet. She raised her sword and chased after him. Li Macho hesitated for a while, but in the end, she still decided to follow and take a look. After all, this mysterious man had a deep relationship with the ancient tomb sect. Before she found out who he was, she couldn't let go of anything else in her mind. Seeing Song Qing-shu leave, the few people from the Azure Sea sect who were in a panic immediately felt relieved. After all, he seemed to have a close relationship with Mu Wanqing and Li Macho. If he stood up for the two girls for what had happened before, even if they didn't die, they would lose a layer of skin. They looked at each other and unanimously chose to escape. As expected, he's a frivolous and formless libertine. Looking at Song Qing-shu's disappearing figure, Ning Zhongzi couldn't help but spit with a red face. End of this chapter. Chapter 565. Seeing that they were far away from the inn, Song Qing-shu breathed a sigh of relief. As he dodged, he called out to Mu Wanqing, "Miss, if you do this again, I'll have to fight back." Mu Wanqing stabbed with her sword while biting her lip. "If you want to fight back, then fight back. Kill me with one slash, and everything will be over." Song Qing-shu took a step back and barely dodged the sword that was aimed at the tip of his nose. He could not help but feel depressed. "You keep calling me a heartless thief. You must have mistaken me for someone else." "No, it's you, heartless thief." The more Mu Wanqing spoke, the more agitated she became. Even her swordsmanship became sharper. How can a girl scold men so easily? Seeing that she was pestering endlessly, Song Qing-shu was a little annoyed and could not help but say angrily, Fine. I'd like to hear you tell me how I'm heartless, and who I'm heartless to. To you?" Mu Wanqing held her breath and snorted, "You know it in your heart. If I knew, why would I ask you?" Song Qing-shu could not help but feel speechless. "You." Mu Wanqing opened her mouth to say something, but her face suddenly turned red. She swallowed the words that were about to come out of her mouth and changed her words. "You used my sister and then abandoned her. If you're not a heartless thief, then what are you?" "Your sister?" Song Qing-shu was stunned. "When did you have a sister?" Still pretending not to know me. "If you don't know me, how would you know if I have a sister?" Mu Wanqing glared at him fiercely. "You don't really know who I am, do you?" The more Song Qing-shu listened, the more he felt that something was wrong. He originally thought that he had already deceived everyone with his words in the restaurant. But looking at Mu Wanxing like this, no one will forget your frivolous scoundrel and mystifying character after seeing it once. When Mu Wanxing said this, she seemed to have thought of something, and a trace of reminiscence unknowingly appeared on her face. At this moment, Song Qing-shu did not know what to say. He could only take off the mask on his face and looked at her with embarrassment. Wanxing, I didn't mean to hide it from you. It's just that my current whereabouts can't be seen by people with ulterior motives. Don't call me like that. Do I know you that well? A faint blush appeared on Mu Wanxing's cheeks. We've been through thick and thin together. Isn't that familiar? I'm really sad to hear you say that. Song Qing-shu sighed faintly. Mu Wanxing panicked. She was really afraid that he would misunderstand her thoughts. She wanted to explain, but when she thought of what he had done, she couldn't help but snort. We are indeed very familiar, so familiar that we are almost a family. Mu Wanxing blushed at his bold speech. For a moment, she was ashamed and angry. Who expressed their love to you? Who cares about your marriage proposal? What I meant just now was, I meant that you are my brother-in-law. As she spoke, she seemed to have touched upon something sad and could not help but cry. Song Qing-shu suddenly panicked. He hurriedly ran to her side and wiped the tears on her cheeks. I really don't quite understand what you mean. How did I become your brother-in-law? Zhongling is my younger sister, and you did such a thing to Zhongling. Mu Wanxing blushed slightly when she felt the heat from his fingertips. She took a step back subconsciously and bit her lip. She could not continue her words. In fact, she was very afraid that Song Qing-shu would ask her why Zhongling was her younger sister. The scandal of the previous generation made Mu Wanxing extremely sensitive and embarrassed about her identity as an illegitimate daughter. She was worried that she would be despised by Song Qing-shu if she said it. Fortunately, Song Qing-shu was very clear about Duan Jingchuan's matter. He just did not realize it before, but after being reminded by Mu Wanxing, he suddenly remembered. He could not help but laugh guiltily. The relationship between you two sisters is quite good. I didn't expect that she would tell you this kind of thing. Mu Wanxing proudly turned her head away, not letting him see the tears in her eyes. It turned out that after being angered by Shui, Sheng, and Jinling City, Mu Wanxing quickly regretted it. However, with her proud and stubborn character, it was absolutely impossible for her to turn back and look for him. In the end, she was disheartened and returned to Dali to live in seclusion with her master Qin Hongmian in the valley, living a life isolated from the world. Qin Hongmian only thought that her daughter was like this because of Duan Yu. She did not know how to comfort her daughter about this ill-fated relationship. Furthermore, half of the reason for this matter was actually her. Feeling guilty, Qin Hongmian actually did not notice her daughter's true feelings. It was only until one day, when Zhongling came to play with Mu Wanxing, that Mu Wanxing found out a lot of things. For example, Zhongling had been learning martial arts from Indigo Phoenix in the Five Venoms cult during this period of time. She took the time to come back to visit her mother and her sister. The two families were relatively close and grew up together. Even if they were not related by blood, they were still as close as sisters. Zhongling was not a scheming person, so she could not help but reveal her thoughts. Hearing Zhongling describe her sweetheart as if he existed in heaven and earth, Mu Wanxing only smiled and did not take it seriously. Instead, the appearance of the man on Mount Hua appeared in her mind. As Zhongling spoke more and more in detail, Mu Wanxing felt more and more strange in her heart. This was because she had an illusion that the person Zhongling described and the person in her heart were overlapping more and more. Out of curiosity, she, who had always been indifferent to men, finally took the initiative to ask Zhongling the name of the man. When Zhongling said the three words Song Qing-shu, Mu Wanxing felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Zhongling did not notice Mu Wanxing's abnormality because she had always been on good terms with her. Later on, due to a freak combination of factors, they became blood-related sisters, so their relationship became even closer. There were some private words that Zhongling was too embarrassed to tell her mother, so she could not help but tell them to Mu Wanxing. Hearing that the two of them had already promised to marry each other privately and had the power of husband and wife, Mu Wanqing simply wanted to kill Song Qing-shu with a sword. However, she could not show it in front of Zhongling, so she could only force a smile and listen to her talk about the romance between the two of them. After sending Zhongling away, Mu Wanqing was extremely annoyed. Coincidentally, Qin Hongmian asked her to assassinate the woman from Gusu's Wang family, so she agreed without thinking. However, when she came to the Central Plains, it just so happened that Song Qing-shu led the Golden Snake camp to defeat the Qing army. All kinds of deeds were spread to the point of being miraculous. Every time Mu Wanqing went to a place, she would hear news about Song Qing-shu. She did not know why, but she changed her itinerary and chose Shandong instead of Gusu. She looked for Song Qing-shu along the way. Even she herself did not know whether it was for her sister, Zhongling, or for herself. Seeing that Mu Wanqing was silent, Song Qing-shu was also a little embarrassed. After all, what he did was really not right. He and Mu Wanqing clearly had feelings for each other, but the two of them had not even had a clear relationship, yet he had first taken her sister to bed. How could Mu Wanqing deal with this? Wanqing, there's a reason why Ling and I did this. At that time, I was seriously injured, and in order to save me, Song Qing-shu briefly explained the relationship between the two of them. I know all this. Mu Wanqing was secretly angry. At that time, Zhongling had a sweet expression of affection in front of her, and now he was replaying it again. Ling, and I are the same as you. We are both in love with each other. How is this heartless? Song Qing-shu asked tentatively. Who is in love with you? Mu Wanqing could not help but spit. If you are not heartless, you would not have left Ling in the five poison sect for so long without asking about her. Ling is a silly girl who believes you unconditionally. I'm not as gullible as she is. Ever since you came to the Central Plains, the streets and alleys have been filled with your romantic affairs. Ninth Princess, head of the Amaze sect, Miss Zheng, Mu Wanqing said sourly, but found that Song Qing-shu was actually looking at her with a smile on his face. She could not help but say angrily, you don't have to smile in front of me even if you are proud of yourself. Wanqing, you came all the way to find me to denounce me. Is it for Zhongling or for yourself? A faint smile hung on the corner of Song Qing-shu's mouth. Mu Wanqing's face alternated between green and white. I came all the way to find you, and you despise me like this? What's so good about that little girl Zhongling? Why are you always so gentle and good to her? You want me to treat you like how I treat Zhongling? That's easy. Song Qing-shu smiled slightly, and his figure suddenly appeared a few inches in front of Mu Wanqing. The two of them were so close that Mu Wanqing could even feel each other's breath. She was so scared that she hurriedly retreated, but her waist was tightly hugged by a big hand. Her body lost its center of gravity and fell into the other's arms. Before Mu Wanqing could react, her moist and bright red lips were already kissed by Song Qing-shu. Her eyes suddenly widened, and she hurriedly pushed him away. She was both shy and angry. You actually molested me. Song Qing-shu smiled slightly. Don't you want me to treat you like how I treat Zhongling? That's how I treat her, but she is much more obedient than you. She will respond to me very obediently every time. Shut up. Mu Wanqing's face turned red when she heard this. She wiped her lips and said angrily, I'm not a silly girl like her. Isn't that enough? Song Qing-shu spread his hands. Each of you is a unique existence. My attitude towards each of you is naturally unique. Could it be that you really want me to treat you like I treat other women? Sophistry. Mu Wanqing glared at him hatefully. She knew in her heart that this was just flowery words, but she didn't know why, but her heart was very satisfied. Her anger had unknowingly dissipated by more than half. Wanqing, if you're still angry with me, then use your poisonous arrow to shoot me. Noticing that the other's brows had loosened, Song Qing-shu struck while the iron was hot. Bah! Mu Wanqing was so angry that she laughed. With your martial arts, how can my poisonous arrow hurt you? Song Qing-shu immediately closed his eyes. Don't worry. In order to appease your anger, I won't dodge. nor will I circulate my martial arts to resist. If I'm poisoned to death, then consider it a punishment from the heavens for my fickleness." Seeing that Song Qingshu really looked like a martyr, Mu Wanqing was so angry that she raised her arm and aimed the sleeve arrow at him. "Do you really think I won't shoot you?" Li Macho, who had been hiding behind a big tree in the distance and watching the show, suddenly had an extremely strange expression. It really is Song Qingshu. In order to pick up girls, he doesn't even care about his life. He's really willing to spend his capital. Chapter 566. Fine, you're the one who said it. She didn't know why, but when she saw Song Qingshu's mischievous look, Mu Wanqing felt a bellyful of pent-up anger. She was originally a very proud person, so how could she withstand such provocation? Without even thinking, she shot an arrow over, and Song Qingshu let out a muffled groan, clutching the wound on his chest. His face was a little pale, and his body swayed, but he still smiled and said, "See, I didn't lie to you." Seeing the dark red blood gradually seeping out from between his fingers, Mu Wanqing instantly panicked. She hurriedly ran over to help him sit down, her voice carrying a hint of sobbing. "Why didn't you dodge? Didn't I just promise you that I wouldn't dodge? If I really did dodge, how would I be able to dispel the anger in your heart?" Song Qingshu forced a smile. "Why are you so stupid?" Mu Wanqing examined his wound as she said anxiously, "Hurry up and circulate your qi to force the poison out. My arrow has been smeared with a very powerful poison." Song Qingshu shook his head. "I already said if I really am poisoned to death, then I deserve it." Seeing that he still refused to circulate his qi to force out the poison, Mu Wanqing was both angry and anxious. In a moment of desperation, she couldn't care too much. She tore open the clothes around his wound, then moved her little mouth over and sucked the poisonous blood out of the wound bit by bit. Song Qingshu instantly said in shock, "You're crazy. You'll die like this. Hurry up and get out of the way." Mu Wanqing stubbornly shook her head. "I was the one who injured you, so let me do it. I'll heal you. If you die by my hands, how will I explain it to that girl Zhongling?" After saying that, she leaned over and silently sucked on his wound. Smelling the fragrance coming from the young girl's hair, Song Qingshu felt a certain soft place in his heart being touched. He couldn't help but reach out and hold Mu Wanqing's hands. Mu Wanqing's body trembled. She struggled a little and found that she couldn't break free from his hands, so she just let him be. Her attention was now on the poison in Song Qingshu's body. Seeing that the blood she had spat out had returned to its normal color, Mu Wanqing smiled in relief. "It should be more or less done. Apply this bottle of medicine on your wound." Before she could finish speaking, she fell headfirst into Song Qingshu's embrace. Song Qingshu was shocked. He lifted her face up to take a look, and discovered that her lips were suffused with a trace of bewitching red. It was obvious that the remaining poison had entered her body through her blood. At this time, he did not care about what he had said before. He immediately helped her sit up straight and quickly sealed a few of the major acupuncture points on her back. Strong internal energy continuously flowed into her body, and before the poison completely entered her body, he tried his best to force it out. Wow, after roughly the time for an incense stick to burn, Mu Wanqing spat out a pool of bright red poisonous blood and finally slowly woke up. "What you're doing is too dangerous. This bit of poison can't actually kill me, but you're different. If I accidentally hurt you, you'll let me." Seeing that she had woken up, Song Qingshu scolded her while his heart ached. Even though he kept scolding her, Mu Wanqing could hear the burning concern in his words, and a trace of sweetness rose in her heart. "Aya, your wound has split open." From the corner of her eye, Mu Wanqing saw that the wound on Song Qingshu's chest had split open again, and blood had seeped into his clothes. She could not help but say anxiously, "Quickly apply some gold sore medicine." Song Qingshu casually sealed a few acupuncture points near the wound and said, "It's fine. See, won't this stop the bleeding?" Sealing acupuncture points to stop the bleeding is just a stopgap measure. You should apply some gold sore medicine. This way, the wound will heal faster. Mu Wanqing urged. Song Qing-shu could not help but smile bitterly. He looked troubled. With my current martial arts, I'm afraid there are not many people in the world who can hurt me. Why would I have something like golds or medicine on me? You only know how to brag. Then why were you so easily injured by my hands? Mu Wanqing's face was slightly red. Although she complained, she was extremely touched. I have golds for medicine on me. When Mu Wanqing was about to take the medicine bottle from her pocket, she suddenly realized that her whole body was numb and powerless. It was probably the sequelae of the poison just now. I can't move now. You can take it yourself. Song Qing-shu glanced at her lapel and smiled somewhat embarrassedly. I'm afraid that's a little inconvenient. There's no need. When you recover, you can apply it to me. I'm asking you to take it, so take it. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Mu Wanqing could not help but widen her almond-shaped eyes. In the end, she could not help but murmur in a low voice, I didn't see you being so polite to that girl Zhongling, but in front of me, you're pretending to be a gentleman. Song Qing-shu was practically sweating like a waterfall. All right. I'll take it, all right? When Song Qing-shu's hand reached into Mu Wanqing's lapel, the two of them could not help but tremble at the same time. A mistake. I really didn't do it on purpose. Song Qing-shu hurriedly explained. Mu Wanqing's cheeks were as red as blood. She turned her head away and did not dare to look at him. Hurry up and take it. Don't touch around. Song Qing-shu simply wanted to cry, but had no tears. He finally wanted to be a gentleman for once, but who knew that the moment he came, he would cause her to misunderstand. Looking at Mu Wanqing's expression, it was obvious that she would not believe that he was merely careless just now. Taking out the medicine bottle, Song Qing-shu directly poured the gold storm medicine on the wound. Mu Wanqing's expression changed when she saw this. Why don't you check it? Aren't you afraid that this bottle of mine contains a poison that can seal one's throat upon contact? Song Qing-shu was secretly amused. As expected, Mu Wanqing had a thunder temperament. She clearly treats me extremely well in her heart, but she refuses to admit it verbally. Even if everyone in the world wants to kill me, Wanqing, you won't harm me, Song Qing-shu said softly. Mu Wanqing was extremely pleased in her heart, but she subconsciously snorted coldly. I'm afraid that you've also added a few people in your heart at the same time, right? Night Princess, Sect Leader Zhou, Miss Zheng, and that girl Zhongling, they definitely can't bear to hurt you in the slightest. Song Qing-shu was embarrassed by her rebuke. For a moment, he did not know how to reply. Mu Wanqing regretted her words as soon as she said them. Seeing that the originally warm atmosphere had turned cold because of her, she was both angry and wronged. I'm so angry. I think you'll die in the hands of a woman sooner or later. Isn't dying in the hands of a woman much happier than dying in the hands of those stinky men? At the same time, Song Qing-shu added in his heart, it's best if I die of exhaustion on a woman's belly when I'm 100 years old. Seeing that Mu Wanqing's willowy eyebrows were about to rise, Song Qing-shu hurriedly picked her up by the knees and carried her horizontally. It's already late. Looking at the wind, I'm afraid it's going to rain soon. Let's find an inn to stay at first. Okay. Mu Wanqing's face turned red again as she thought of something. She nodded meekly. Don't go back to that in just now. I'm so embarrassed like this. Don't worry. There's a town about 10 miles away from here. Let's go there. Song Qing-shu suddenly laughed. Wanqing, your body is so light. It's not like you haven't hugged me before. Mu Wanqing mumbled in a low voice. She was so embarrassed that she buried her head in his chest and refused to pay any attention to him. Song Qing-shu was stunned. Only then did he remember that he had hugged her on Mount Hua. He could not help but smile knowingly. He did not say anything else and carried her to the nearby town. Chapter 567. Mu Wanqing did not know that there was a confused bystander behind her. She buried her head in Song Qing-shu's arms and did not dare to raise her head. There was a comfortable smell on his body. Mu Wanqing thought for a long time, but did not know how to describe this unique smell. In the end, she suddenly had an idea. It turned out to be the smell of sunlight. Smelling this reassuring smell, Mu Wanqing fell asleep unknowingly. When she woke up, she suddenly heard some messy sounds. She secretly raised her head and found that the two of them were already in the market. Along the way, many people stood on the side and pointed at the two of them. She could not help but feel embarrassed and hurriedly complained in a low voice, "Why didn't you wake me up? You're awake." Song Qingshu looked down at the woman in his arms and said with a smile, "You've just detoxified the poison. Sleeping more will help your body recover." So many people are watching. Seeing that he did not have the slightest intention of letting go of her, Mu Wanqing immediately pouted coquettishly. If they want to see, then let them see. Handsome men and beautiful women are welcomed everywhere. Song Kinga laughed. "I didn't think you were so shameless." Mu Wanqing's face was flushed with embarrassment, but she was reluctant to leave this warm embrace, so she took out a silk scarf and covered her face. Then, she buried her head in Song Qingshu's arms again. Song Qingshu was amused by her ostrich mentality. "Why are you hiding? It's not like we have a shameful relationship." "I don't care. I don't want others to see me like this." Mu Wanqing replied in a muffled voice. "All right then. Since you don't want others to see your face, I'll accompany you." Song Qingshu smiled and took out the silver mask to cover his face. After all, his whereabouts still needed to be kept a secret. It was strange that after covering her face, Mu Wanqing suddenly relaxed. She no longer felt uncomfortable like before. She even looked up from time to time to size up the people and things around her. Song Qingshu found an inn. As soon as he entered, he saw the innkeeper greet him with a smile. "This must be Master Song, right?" Mu Wanqing couldn't help but look at him in confusion. Song Qingshu was also startled. "You know me?" The restaurant owner smiled, but did not say anything. Instead, he turned his head and called for the waiter to come over. "Master Song, the Sky Room 1 has been prepared for you early in the morning. Please go upstairs with your wife to wash up and take a rest. We will send the dishes to your room later." Mu Wanqing's heart was thumping wildly as she listened. She thought to herself that this person was really bad to the bone. He had clearly taken advantage of the fact that she was asleep to come here and book a room, yet he purposely took her out in a big circle. But he only booked one room. Then wouldn't I have to? Mu Wanqing's grip on Song Qingshu's clothes tightened, loosened, and tightened again. It was obvious that her heart was extremely unsettled. Song Qingshu did not notice the change in the mood of the beauty in his arms. Instead, he said doubtfully, "Did you make a mistake? I didn't order these things." The restaurant owner was also startled, but he looked him up and down. In the end, he said with certainty, "That's right. Previously, there was a young master who was extremely generous. He asked us to welcome a young master wearing a silver mask as a guest of honor. Isn't that young master you?" Song Qingshu was extremely shocked. His journey to the north was extremely secretive. Even within the Golden Snake Camp, not many people knew about it. How could someone know about his whereabouts? He couldn't help but ask in a low voice, "Who is that young master?" The restaurant owner looked embarrassed. "Young master, aren't you making things difficult for me? We're doing business. How can we divulge the employer's information?" Song Qingshu secretly sneered. "If you were really so upright, you wouldn't say such things." Taking out an ingot of silver from his bosom and handing it to the restaurant owner, Song Qingshu said in a low voice, "I am also your employer. Now you can tell me if there's any problem." The restaurant owner laughed awkwardly and put the silver into his sleeve without leaving a trace. He said in a low voice, "That young master shouldn't be a local. I have also opened an inn in this area for more than 10 years. If he was a local, I would definitely know him." Noticing that Song Qingshu seemed to be a little impatient, the restaurant owner hurriedly added, "But that young master is obviously not an ordinary person. The material of his clothes is extremely exquisite. His every movement exudes a noble aura. It's a pity that he is a little too handsome. His lips are red and his teeth are white. Perhaps the young master of a rich family has mingled with the maids for a long time and has been stained with a lot of cosmetics." Song Qingshu nodded thoughtfully. "All right, we'll go upstairs first. Prepare hot water and bring it up." With that, He carried Mu Wanqing and walked straight to the #1 room in the sky. After entering the room, there were only the two of them. Mu Wanqing was too embarrassed to let Song Qingshu carry her anymore. She struggled and jumped out his arms. Looking at the exquisitely decorated room, she couldn't help but sigh. I didn't expect that there would be such an elegant room in such a remote and desolate place. Song Qingshu opened the window a slit and was scanning the situation downstairs. He couldn't help but smile faintly when he heard what she said. The incense in the room is the best ambergris. The quilt is the most expensive Sioux brocade, and the tea set is also the top quality of Jingda Jun's official kiln. Even the tea leaves are long jing before the rain. Do you think an inn in such a remote town has this kind of financial resources? Mu Wanqing suddenly came to her senses. You didn't arrange all this? I have important matters to attend to in the north this time. How can I have this kind of free time? Song Qingshu replied in a bad mood. Only then did Mu Wanqing realize that she was letting her imagination run wild. She couldn't help but feel ashamed and embarrassed. Fortunately, the other party didn't know what she was thinking just now. Is this a black inn? Mu Wanqing calmed down and asked worriedly. Not to that extent. No black inn is willing to spend so much money. Song Qingshu closed the window and smiled slightly. You don't have to worry. Since we're here, we'll just take things as they come. We'll wait for that mysterious person to show his tail. Mu Wanqing nodded in trust. If she was alone, she would have left this strange place a long time ago. However, when she was by Song Qingshu's side, she felt unprecedentedly at ease. Uncle Song, the hot water you wanted is ready. There was a knock on the door. Come in, Song Qingshu replied. After the door opened, the owner of the inn directed several servants to carry in buckets of hot water and pour it into the bathtub in the room. After seeing that it was almost ready, he came in front of Song Qingshu and said with a flattering smile, Everything in this room is brand new. You two can rest assured and use it. Song Qingshu nodded. Sorry to trouble you, boss. The owner of the inn smiled and waved his hand. No trouble. No trouble. I won't disturb you two anymore. I'll get someone to serve the food and wine later. After saying that, he carefully retreated. When everyone left the room, Mu Wanqing couldn't help but look at the steaming bathtub in the room. She couldn't help but be dumbfounded. You want to take a bath? It's not me. It's you. Song Qingshu looked at her with a smile. Mu Wanqing's heart skipped a beat. She subconsciously shook her head. If you want to take a bath, you could take a bath yourself. I don't need it. Noticing that her ears were red, Song Qingshu couldn't help but laugh. What are you thinking about? It's just that today you were poisoned by the soul-freezing silver needles and then by the poison on your sleeve dart. Although most of the poison has been detoxified, the two poisons are mixed together. There will always be some remaining in your body. If you don't force it out as soon as possible, it will harm your body in the future. That's why I prepared hot water. When your whole body is soaked in water, I will force the poison out of your body. Mu Wanqing knew that what he said made sense. Otherwise, she wouldn't still feel dizzy. But to take off her clothes and soak in the bathtub in front of Song Qingshu, she really couldn't do it. Forget it. I'm fine now. I've fully recovered. Mu Wanqing hurriedly shook her small hand and refused. Don't you want to hear what the consequences will be in the future if you let these poisons stay in your body? Looking at her embarrassed appearance, how could Song Qingshu not know what she was thinking? He deliberately scared her. What consequences can there be? Mu Wanqing was startled. These two poisons are very potent. Even if it's just a remnant, it's still very harmful to the body, especially you women. If you're not careful, it might affect your future fertility. I don't want to be childless in the future. Song Qingshu said with a worried expression. Mu Wanqing was originally scared into a daze. After all, it was only a vague and general idea that it was harmful to the body. In the end, when she heard the end, she couldn't help but spit. Bah, what does it have to do with me, whether you have children or not? Song Qingshu looked at her affectionately. Because you're the mother of my future child. Mu Wanqing's heart pounded under his scorching gaze. She subconsciously turned her head away, pouted, and snorted. Who wants to have a child with you? What's more, You have so many women around you. How is it possible that none of them will give you children? Although she said that, she couldn't get angry at all. Instead, she was at a loss for what to do because of the other party's bold words. Don't you want children? Song Qing-shu walked behind Mu Wanqing and gently hugged her in his arms. He whispered in her ear. Mu Wanqing's body trembled, but she didn't push him away. She was actually very conflicted. She knew that all of this was probably just Song Qing-shu scaring her, but she didn't dare to take this risk. If what he said was true, the consequences would be unimaginable. I know what you're planning, but I'm not a silly girl like Zhongling who gave my body to you without knowing why. You can force the poison out later, but if you dare to do anything rude to me, I'll... Mu Wanqing bit her lip and realized that she couldn't find anything to threaten him with. Song Qing-shu's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't help but tease her. You'll what? I'll ignore you. As soon as the words left her mouth, Mu Wanqing felt that it was inappropriate. Wasn't this kind of weak threat encouraging him to violate her? She panicked and couldn't help but cry. You only know how to bully me. Song Qing-shu's heart softened. He said softly, Don't worry, I was just joking with you. I'll cover my eyes when I force the poison out of your body. This way, you don't have to worry, right? Chapter 568. Noticing the faint smile in Song Qing-shu's eyes, Mu Wanqing immediately became anxious. She explained with a red face, Don't misunderstand. I'm afraid that if you cover your eyes, the poison in my body won't be cleansed. Song Qing-shu laughed. Don't worry. With my current power, even if I cover my eyes, I can still see. You. Mu Wanqing almost fainted from anger. Okay, I won't tease you anymore. Don't worry, I won't use this kind of method to take advantage of you. When the time comes, I won't look around. Song Qing-shu put away his smile and said seriously, Hurry up. When the water gets cold, the effect of forcing the poison out won't be good. Looking at the steaming bathtub, Mu Wanqing blushed and said in a low voice, Then turn around first. Don't look back until I tell you. Okay. Song Qing-shu turned around without hesitation. After a long time, he heard the rustling sound of clothes being taken off. He couldn't help but feel a trace of tenderness in his heart. Although sometimes he seemed like a beast, those were all women who didn't care about him. He was very clear about love and desire. For people like Nanlan, Luo Bing, Little Tong, and recently Jiao Wan'er, he had almost no love for them. He only had the most primitive possessiveness. In addition, they were married young women, and their bodies had already matured to the extreme. They could also withstand all kinds of barbaric torment from him. So his attitude was much more rough and domineering. But for a pure girl like Mu Wanqing, he really liked her. His heart was full of pity and love. So naturally, he couldn't bear to use those methods to bully her. Song Qing-shu's mind wandered. After an unknown amount of time, he suddenly heard a shy voice behind him. Okay, you can turn around. Looking back, he saw that Mu Wanqing's entire body was under the water, and only her head was exposed. Because there was a layer of flower petals floating on the water, the situation under the water was hazy, so he couldn't see clearly. Because Mu Wanqing had always been wearing a veil, she was the same as Xiaolong knew. She hadn't seen the sun for a long time, so her skin was a little whiter than other young girls. But now, she didn't know if it was because she was shy or because of the steam from the water, but her face was white and rosy, making her look tender and alluring. What are you looking at? Quickly force out the poison from my body. When she saw Song Qing-shu staring fixedly at her, Mu Wanqing was embarrassed to the extreme, and she instantly pouted coquettishly without end. Wanqing, who asked you to be so beautiful? Although Song Qing-shu was teasing on the surface, he didn't dare to delay business. If too much time passed, and the remaining poison in Mu Wanqing's body invaded her meridians, then he would regret it to death. Song Qing-shu's palm gently pressed against her back. The smooth and delicate touch made his heart skip a beat. He quickly focused his mind and said, Wanqing, I'm going to start forcing the poison out of your body. Relax your body and don't circulate your energy to resist my true qi. Okay. Mu Wanqing blushed and nodded. As expected, she let down her guard and allowed his true qi to continuously enter her meridians. It should be known that in Jianghu, letting another person's true qi enter one's body without any precaution could be said to be putting one's life in the hands of the other party. As long as the other party thought about it, with a light release of force, one's martial arts would be completely crippled, and in serious cases, one would die on the spot. It could be said that unless the two people had the closest relationship and trusted each other 100%, no one would dare to take such a big risk. Sensing that Song Qingshu's warm, true qi had fused into her limbs and bones, it was warm and extremely comfortable. Mu Wanqing felt so comfortable that she almost moaned. However, the girl's reserve made her suppress her feelings. In order not to lose her composure later and dispel the awkwardness in her heart at the same time, Mu Wanqing could only divert her attention and talk to Song Qingshu. "Are you going to the north this time?" "Yes, I have something important to do in Yanjing." Song Qingshu didn't explain the details in detail. After all, this matter couldn't be explained clearly in a few words. "All right, what are your plans after this? Why don't you come with me to Beijing?" Mu Wanqing was rather moved, but after thinking about it, she still shook her head and said, "I still have to do something for my master. Your teacher, Azura Blade Qin Hongmian?" Seeing the other party nod his head, Song Qingshu continued asking, "What did she ask you to do?" Mu Wanqing was somewhat surprised that Song Qingshu even knew her master's maiden name. "She told me to kill a woman from Gusu's Wang family." "She told you to kill Li Qingluo?" Song Qingshu couldn't help but frown as he said, "Li Qing has many subordinates in Luo Montois Villa, and he's allied with the Morong family. If you're alone, it's truly too dangerous." Mu Wanqing pursed her lips into a smile and said, "Don't worry. It's not like I've never tried to assassinate her before. Even though there are a lot of people in Montois Villa, I won't be so stupid as to openly go and attack them head-on. With my martial arts, even if I can't kill Madame Wang, I'll definitely have no problem protecting myself." Song Qingshu instantly had a headache. "Seriously, your mother. Why did she drag you into the fight between the older generation? If she wants to kill her rival in love, she can just do it herself. You're not allowed to talk about my mother like that." Mu Wanqing suddenly came to a realization. "You know everything?" Song Qingshu smiled faintly and said, "I know more than you can imagine. Are you looking down on me and my mother?" "My mother got pregnant out of wedlock, and I'm an illegitimate daughter." Mu Wanqing's expression instantly became rather gloomy. "Why would I look down on you? I just look down on that bastard, Duan Zhengchun. On the surface, he looks like he's elegant and flirtatious, but deep down, he's an extremely heartless person. After harming a pure and innocent girl, he just walked away, leaving the girl to bear the criticism of the world and the pain of having a child out of wedlock." Song Qingshu said indignantly, "Flirting everywhere, but not taking responsibility. What's the difference between him and a notorious pervert like Yun Zhonghe?" Mu Wanqing chuckled and said snappily, "Look at how agitated you are. Anyway, I've never treated that person as my father. It's just that you're so happy to scold him. Have you forgotten that you also flirt everywhere? Of course I'm different from him. I'll never let my woman be wronged. Everyone has a status." Song Qingshu said seriously. Mu Wanqing was slightly absent-minded. Finally, she let out a long sigh. "I hope you can do what you say." Mu Wanqing originally had a high requirement for loyalty and uniqueness in love, but because of her mother's matter, she could personally understand the misery of a woman without a status. When she heard Song Qingshu's words, she couldn't help but feel deeply moved, and for a moment, she couldn't bring herself to be jealous. "Wanqing, listen to me. After all, Li Qingluo has a relationship with your father. Her daughter, Wang Yuyin, is your half-sister. If you really kill her, when the time comes, Wang Yuyin will definitely find you for revenge. Wouldn't that cause a tragedy of flesh and blood killing each other? What's more, when the time comes, how will Duan Zhengchun see you?" Song Qingshu tried to dispel her idea of assassinating him. Chapter 569. What are you thinking? Wang Yuyin and I only know each other. We're not even friends, Song Qing-shu added his mind. However, it was thanks to her guidance that he was able to be reborn, so he still had to repay her kindness. Is that so? Mu Wanqing was dubious. Of course, she was very sensitive about this issue. Previously, when she found out that Duan Yu was her biological brother, she was heartbroken. She even considered taking Duan Yu and eloping to a place where no one knew them to live in seclusion. In the end, Duan Yu turned around and fell in love with some Miss Wang. She was disheartened and had the idea of committing suicide. That was until she met Song Qing-shu. If even Song Qing-shu fell in love with Wang Yuyin, Mu Wanqing felt that she could really go die. Wait, Mu Wanqing's expression suddenly became very strange. You said that Miss Wang is also, it's also that bastard Duan Zhengchuan's fault. She's your real sister. Song Qing-shu smiled faintly. Do you still want to kill her mother? Then isn't she and Duan, you also brother and sister? Mu Wanqing's face was full of shock. She didn't know whether she was happy or unhappy at the moment. In short, it was a very complicated emotion. She's your real sister, but she might not be Duan Yu's real brother and sister. Song Qing-shu didn't want to reveal too many secrets, so he changed the topic. Why? Do you want to inform that brother of yours? Why would I inform him? The men of the Duan family are all heartless people. They deserve retribution for their own sins. Mu Wanqing said hatefully. Back then, Li Qingluo had harmed her mother, and later on, her daughter had come to harm her. Moreover, Duan Zhengchun was the main culprit of all this, and Duan Yu had changed his mind. Mu Wanqing's heart had long since turned cold. Don't worry, Duan Yu is blessed. What you think won't happen. Song Qing-shu saw a trace of worry in Mu Wanqing's eyes and couldn't help but comfort her. Mu Wanqing was shocked and hurriedly explained, Big brother Song, I only have sibling feelings for him, nothing else. Song Qing-shu smiled. You don't have to explain. I believe you. With your personality, if you haven't let go of him, it's impossible for you to show your body to other men. Only then did Mu Wanqing remember that she was still deep in the bathtub, and she couldn't help but feel embarrassed. She asked in a low voice, still not done. It's almost done. Song Qing-shu quickly poked a few times on her snow-white back muscles. Mu Wanqing let out a muffled groan and hurriedly laid down beside the bathtub, spitting out a mouthful of blood on the ground. Song Qing-shu wiped the fine sweat on his forehead and let out a long sigh of relief. All right, most of the remaining poison in your body has been expelled into the hot water. The last bit has also disappeared along with this mouthful of blood. You don't have to worry anymore. Song Qing-shu's eyes widened. Mu Wanqing was lying on the edge of the bathtub, not noticing that half of her body had already floated out of the water. Her snow-white skin, as well as that slender waist, made her look like a stunning mermaid who had just come out of the bath. Sensing the abnormality in his words, Mu Wanqing finally realized that something was wrong. She was so frightened that she hurriedly shrank back into the bathtub, causing a huge splash. Song Qing-shu dodged the splash as he said with a smile, Hurry up and come out. This hot water contains the poison that has just been forced out of your body. If it takes too long and reinvades your body, it'll be troublesome. Then hurry up and turn around. Mu Wanqing was so anxious that she was about to cry. All right. Song Qing-shu turned around with a smile, conveniently grabbing the clothes on the screen and stuffing them behind him. After a long while, Mu Wanqing's timid voice came from behind him. All right. Song Qing-shu turned around, and his eyes lit up. Mu Wanqing's long hair draped over her shoulders, shining so brightly that it could be seen as a mirror. Because she had just come out of the bath, although she didn't have any makeup on, her hair still shone brightly in the room. That idiot Duan Yu is really blind. He didn't want such a beautiful fairy and insisted on foolishly pestering that Miss Wang. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but sigh. Mu Wanqing's appearance was not inferior to Wang Yuyin's in the first place. Plum, orchid, bamboo, chrysanthemum each had their own advantages. Duan Yu had probably been poisoned by some fairy sister, so that other than Miss Wang, He wouldn't even look at any other girl. Mu Wanqing's face paled when she heard his words. I have something I need to explain to you first. Otherwise, I won't feel at ease. Seeing her solemn expression, Song Qingshu couldn't help but be startled. What is it? When the four great evildoers came to Dali to help Duan Yanqing regain the throne, in order to ruin the Duan clan's reputation, they locked me and Duan Yu in a stone room. They even put something in our food. Mu Wanqing bit her lip and told him about the yin-yang harmony powder incident from beginning to end. Then, she quietly looked at Song Qingshu. Seeing that Mu Wanqing didn't go into detail about what happened between her and Duan Yu, Song Qingshu was shocked. Could it be that the plot had changed? Did Duan Yu really do something to her? Song Qingshu quickly expelled these thoughts from his mind. Instead, he held Mu Wanqing's hand and comforted her. Wanqing, no matter what you've experienced, it's not your fault. You've always been a victim. I only hate that I didn't get to know you earlier and protect you. But you don't have to worry in the future. I will always stay by your side to protect you and keep you away from any harm. You really don't mind? Mu Wanqing's eyes sparkled as she looked straight into his eyes. Those feudal ethics and whatnot are just bullsh asterisk T to me. Since I like you, I will accept all of you. Song Qingshu continuously comforted her. He wasn't lying. In his previous world, this concept was very open. Chastity and innocence only existed in legends. Big Brother Song. Mu Wanqing's eyes were filled with tears. For the first time, she took the initiative to throw herself into his embrace. Looking at the beautiful woman in his embrace's delicate red lips and her smooth little mouth, Song Qingshu's heart was moved. He slowly leaned over and kissed her. Looking at Song Qingshu's face getting closer and closer to her, Mu Wanqing panicked. She subconsciously raised her head. You? What are you doing? What are you hiding for? Don't you like me kissing you? Song Qingshu asked doubtfully. Mu Wanqing was speechless for a moment. She didn't know whether she liked it or not. While she was hesitating, Song Qingshu's lips were already on hers. Ugh. Mu Wanqing's body tensed up. However, she was still lost under his breath. She slowly closed her eyes and opened her cherry lips, allowing him to wantonly taste her. Not long after, Mu Wanqing's body went limp. Most of her body hung on Song Qingshu's body. She didn't know when his hand had reached into her clothes. Mu Wanqing sighed slightly. She let go of her guard in front of her chest and hooked her arms around his neck. She raised her head and responded gently. Unknowingly, Mu Wanqing found herself lying flat on the bed. Her clothes were also messily untied. What made her blush even more was that Song Qingshu was currently burying his head in her chest. Very quickly, a strange feeling spread throughout her body. Mu Wanqing's heart was filled with tenderness. Just as she was about to completely let go of everything and accept him, she suddenly remembered something. She couldn't help but feel ashamed and angry. She pushed the man on top of her away. Wow, so you were lying to me? Song Qingshu looked at her in confusion. He was extremely shocked. What did I lie to you about? Mu Wanqing had already sat up. While buttoning her clothes, she bit her lips and said, That girl Zhongling told me everything. I know that you went to Tubo and learned a set of messy and dirty techniques. How could you not see that I'm still a young girl? However, I was delusional and thought that you really liked me so much that you didn't even mind that kind of thing. I was so touched that I decided to let you personally test my innocence. It turned out that Mu Wanqing had deliberately brought up the matter of the yin-yang harmony powder just now to deliberately test Song Qingshu and see what position she had in his heart. The breadth of mind and love that Song Qingshu had shown moved her. She was so hot-headed that she planned to immediately devote herself to him and use facts to prove her innocence. However, just when she was about to step into the door, she suddenly remembered the things that Zhongling had said. She suddenly came to a realization, which was why she was so ashamed and angry just now. Song Qingshu looked wronged. Do you know that what you said just now was like a bolt from the blue? How would I know that you would lie to me? My mind was full of ways to let you walk out of the shadow and dilute the pain in your heart. How would I have the chance to distinguish whether you are a virgin or not? Seeing that Mu Wanqing still had a skeptical look on her face, Song Qing-shu immediately panicked. Song Qing-shu, swear to the heavens that if I had known that you were lying to me, let my heavens Mu Wanqing hurriedly reached out to cover his mouth. How can a poisonous oath be made so casually? I believe you. Song Qing-shu finally breathed a sigh of relief. Looking at Mu Wanqing sitting on the edge of the bed, he couldn't help but be tempted. Why don't we continue? Who wants to continue with you? Mu Wanqing couldn't help but roll her eyes at him and snorted in a low voice. Haven't you taken enough advantage of me just now? Not enough. Of course not enough. Song Qing-shu moved closer with a salivating face. Mu Wanqing's face was bright red. She lowered her head and said in a low voice, Brother Song, if I was the only woman you have, I would do whatever you want to do now. But in the short period of a month since I came to the Central Plains, I heard that you were surrounded by countless female confidants. You also know about my mother. Back then, she was deceived by the flowery words of that surnamed Duan, and as a result, she regretted it for the rest of her life. I don't want my mother to see me repeat her old path. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. Then isn't it impossible for us? You. Mu Wanqing glared at him angrily. Why don't you go to my mother to propose marriage first? Understanding that Mu Wanqing actually meant this, Song Qing-shu was immediately overjoyed. You should have said so earlier. You scared me to death. I thought you had decided to leave me. Mu Wanqing snorted, turned her head away, and didn't say anything with a red face. Chapter 570. Song Qing-shu leaned over and whispered, Anyway, I'll marry you sooner or later. Let me satisfy my craving first. Mu Wanqing pushed him away in annoyance and cried, I've even agreed to work with other women as a husband, but you don't know how to understand my difficulties. Song Qing-shu panicked and hurriedly explained, I'm too much of a beast. Don't take it to heart. I won't force you, okay? Mu Wanqing sighed faintly. Brother Song, get married first and then do that. This is my bottom line. Song Qing-shu sighed and said, After we get married? I thought it would be fine after proposing. Seeing his disappointed face, Mu Wanqing couldn't bear to see him. After hesitating for a moment, she whispered, After proposing, it's not impossible. That's good. Song Qing-shu immediately beamed with joy, but he quickly became depressed. But I've been very busy recently. I'm afraid I won't have time to go to Dolly for a while. It's okay. I'll wait for you anyway. Mu Wanqing smiled shyly. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but feel touched. I think I'm definitely the luckiest man in the world. Author's note. Nonsense. Look at how happy you are. I don't know how to explain to Zhongling when the time comes. Mu Wanqing's delicate eyebrows were slightly furrowed. It was obvious that she was extremely distressed. Don't worry. Ling has a gentle personality. Moreover, you're her sister. She can't wait to be happy. Song Qing-shu hugged her shoulders and comforted her. Are you saying that my personality is very fierce? Mu Wanqing's almond-shaped eyes suddenly widened, and her little mouth pouted. No way. Song Qing-shu was speechless. He understood that it was futile to reason with a woman. He didn't care so much and directly kissed her little mouth. Ugh. Mu Wanqing said something, but in the end, it all turned into vague whimpers. After a long time, their lips parted, and she rolled her eyes at Song Qing-shu. You only know how to bully me. Although her mouth was full of coquettishness, she didn't have the slightest bit of blame in her heart. Okay, I won't bully you anymore. Song Qing-shu gently held her in his arms and said softly, Have you decided to go to Gusu? Yes. Mu Wanqing's back leaned against Song Qing-shu's chest, her whole body strangely relaxed. I promised my mother, so I can't let her down. Even if I don't kill that woman, at least I have to teach her a lesson, so that I can go back and report. Hearing that her tone was a little relaxed, Song Qing-shu understood that she would not be ruthless at that time, and he was also relieved. After all, he didn't want Mu Wanqing to live in revenge and being avenged by others for the rest of her life. You still have to be more careful when you go to Gusu this time. When you have time, read the 5 poisons esoterica that Limacho gave you. It should be able to improve your martial arts in a short time, and it should be enough to deal with the Wong family. But if you meet someone whose martial arts is much higher than yours like today, you should say my name like today. The other party should not be too difficult for you, because they are afraid of hurting you. Song Qing-shu thought about the dangers that Mu Wanqing might encounter when she went to Gusu and thought of ways to deal with them for her one by one. It's okay if you don't say it. I haven't settled the score with you about what happened in the restaurant before. You deliberately lured me to say such shameful words. How can I face others in Jianghu in the future? Thinking that she didn't know that Song Qing-shu was beside her and actually said that she was his woman in front of him, Mu Wanqing wished there was a hole to hide in. At that time, I didn't expect you to say that, but I was very happy when I heard it. Song Qing-shu's hand holding her tightened. I thought you only had Duan Yu, that brat, in your heart. What brat? It's so unpleasant to hear. He is my brother. Mu Wanqing was suddenly a little dissatisfied. Brother is a brother, but not necessarily a biological brother. Song Qing-shu smiled meaningfully. Mu Wanqing didn't hear anything unusual. Instead, she asked, who is Scarlet Serpent Fairy to you? Why did she want to save me at the risk of her life when she heard about my relationship with you? Who do you think she is to me? Song Qing-shu looked at her with a smile that was not a smile. You are such a womanizer. You hook up everywhere, all day long. How do I know if she's your other confidant? Mu Wanqing said with jealousy. Don't worry. Looking at Mu Wanqing's jealous look, Song Qing-shu couldn't help but smile. It's just because I saved her. Maybe she wanted to repay my kindness. Is that so? Mu Wanqing was skeptical. Suddenly, she felt a little uncomfortable behind her. She couldn't help but twist her waist. Hey, what are you poking me with? Before Song Qing-shu could think of how to answer, Mu Wanqing had already reacted. She blushed and spat. Bah, what are you thinking about in your messy brain? Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly. You really can't blame me. It's because the anger that you aroused just now hasn't subsided. I'm still feeling uncomfortable. Is it really that uncomfortable? Mu Wanqing asked in a low voice with a bashful expression. Song Qing-shu's expression changed. He hurriedly said in an exaggerated manner, It's uncomfortable to death. I'm about to explode. Mu Wanqing raised her head and looked at him with a smile that was not a smile. Do you think I'm a silly girl like Zhongling, who will help you with just a few words, like that? With his thoughts exposed, Song Qing-shu was also very embarrassed. He couldn't help but fly into a rage out of humiliation. Ling'er, that girl, why did she even tell you this kind of thing? Don't blame her. She's never been scheming. She's played with me since we were young. I just asked a few questions and she spilled everything out. Noticing Song Qing-shu's embarrassed face, Mu Wanqing couldn't help but laugh. She blushed and said in a low voice, Big brother Song, actually, you don't have to go through so much trouble. Just tell me directly. It's not like I don't want to help you. Song Qing-shu was startled. He saw Mu Wanqing smile gently at him. Her body twisted a few times, and she had already shrunk to his waist. Hiss, Song Qing-shu gently stroked Mu Wanqing's soft head. He couldn't help but sigh with emotion in his heart. Once a young girl fell into the river of love, she would be much bolder in front of her lover than he imagined. After an unknown amount of time, Mu Wanqing coughed violently. She hurriedly sat up straight and used a silk handkerchief to wipe the traces at the corner of her mouth. At the same time, she looked at Song Qing-shu reproachfully. The faint charm that was revealed in her every movement caused Song Qing-shu's eyes to stare blankly at her. In the next few days, the two of them were even more attached to each other. During the day, they would go out hand in hand to play, and at night, they would return to the room. Mu Wanqing had just fallen into the river of love. In front of her lover, she changed from her usual cold and fierce appearance and became as gentle as water. Other than sticking to the last step, she didn't refuse any of Song Qing-shu's requests. All she could think about was how to make her lover happy. Song Qing-shu spent a few celestial-like days, and finally, It was the day of departure that they had agreed to. Early in the morning, Mu Wanqing sat up on the bed and looked at Song Qing-shu, who was still sleeping soundly beside her. She muttered in a low voice, "Song Qing-shu, you have a heavy responsibility this time. I'm already very happy that you can stay here and accompany me these 2 days. But I also know in my heart that I can't stubbornly pester you anymore. You have important things to do, and I should also head south to Gusu. After I finish my task, I'll come find you." After Mu Wanqing floated far away, Song Qing-shu opened his eyes. He touched the lingering fragrance at the corner of his lips and the tear stains that fell on his cheeks. For a moment, he was disappointed and lost. Those who are sad are only sad because they have to part. At this time, in a courtyard 100 miles away from this town, a young master dressed in embroidered clothes was listening to his subordinate's report. He couldn't help but frown. There's no news of that person in the few towns in front? Reported to master, no. The young master dressed in embroidered clothes couldn't help but pace back and forth in the room. That's strange. 2 days ago, there was news of him staying in Lilian Town. According to his schedule, he should have arrived here today. Could it be that something happened to him on the way? No, that's impossible. His martial arts are so high. How many people in this world can hurt him? The young master dressed in embroidered clothes quickly overturned his own thoughts. His handsome face was filled with doubt. The subordinate knelt on the ground and was so nervous that he didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Although this master of his was extremely beautiful, he didn't even have the intention to raise his head to look at her. He was afraid of offending her at this moment. Reporting to master, there's news from Lilian Town. Soon, another subordinate dressed as a servant came to the door, but his expression was extremely strange. He seemed to be hesitating whether or not to speak. The young master dressed in embroidered clothes said anxiously, "Speak quickly." "Yes," the subordinate hurriedly replied. "According to the report from the spies in Lilian Town, that person entered the inn we arranged for him. After that, he hasn't left the town. During the day, he and his companion, that Miss Mu, wandered around the town. At night, he and that Miss Mu shared a room. As if he could feel the anger of his master, the subordinate became hesitant when he answered. The young master dressed in embroidered clothes' face twitched. He took a deep breath and casually waved his hand. His voice was devoid of emotion. "You can leave now." "Yes." The two subordinates hurriedly retreated as if they had been granted amnesty. When they reached a distance where their master couldn't hear them, the two servants looked at each other and secretly gave a thumbs up in unison. "That Song guy is really awesome." "Yes, master treated him with such hospitality, but he fooled around with other women in the place provided by master. He's really, if I were as lucky as him and had a great beauty like master waiting for me in front of me, I wouldn't hesitate to kick that woman even if she was a fairy." "Shoo, do you want to die? How dare you make fun of master?" Yes. I misspoke. Let's go. The young master dressed in embroidered clothes, who stayed in the room, was extremely anxious. Finally, he couldn't help but pick up a porcelain tribute from the kiln in front of him and smash it on the ground. He was so angry that he trembled all over. "Song Qing-shu, I've been worried about you for the past 2 days. It turns out that you, bastard, have been enjoying yourself in the land of women." At this time, Song Qing-shu, who had just left Lilian Town, suddenly sneezed. He couldn't help but touch his nose. A trace of an evil smile appeared on his lips. "I don't play by the rules. I've stayed here for a few days. I think that mysterious man must be waiting for me to come back." Song Qing-shu suddenly frowned and looked at a certain bamboo forest behind him. "You've been following me for so long. Come out." Chapter 571. The Golden Snake King's martial arts are indeed outstanding. I only breathed a little heavily and you noticed. A beautiful Taoist nun smiled as she slowly walked out of the bamboo forest. She was wearing a yellow Taoist robe. It was the scarlet serpent deity Li Macho. Her voice was soft and sweet. Her expression was flirtatious. Her eyes were bright. Her teeth were white, and her skin was white. She was indeed an outstanding beauty. She didn't seem to move her legs or feet, but she had already lightly moved to a place 10 feet away from Song Qing-shu. Deity, you're treating me like an outsider. With our relationship, calling me the Golden Snake King is really too distant. Song Qing-shu sighed inwardly. The person in front of him gently waved the horsetail whisk in her hand. Her expression was relaxed. Her beautiful eyes were bright, and her rosy cheeks were blushing. Those who didn't know better would never think that she was a murderous demoness. Li Macho was annoyed. What kind of relationship do I have with you? But she still smiled like a flower. Young master, you also call me deity. Don't treat me like an outsider. Song Qing-shu smiled faintly. You are so charming, and your face is more beautiful than a flower. If I call you Taoist, Li, it would be too much of a wet blanket. If I call you macho, it would be too frivolous. After thinking about it, only deity is the most suitable. Li Macho's cheeks blushed from his praise. In her entire life, she had only been praised like this by Lu Zhanyuan when she first entered the martial world. After she became the Scarlet Serpent deity, everyone was afraid of her. Who dared to praise her beauty like this? Oh, that's not right. That bastard Yang will also praise me in the past. Prince Song is flattering me. Even if I had some beauty in the past, I am old now. How can I be called a deity? Seeing Li Macho's blushing face, Song Qing-shu exclaimed, Who would say that deity is old? I see that deity's skin is whiter than snow, and your skin is so delicate that you are obviously a 16-year-old girl. It is indeed my fault. I shouldn't have called you deity. I should have called you something else. Li Macho knew that he was deliberately teasing her, but she still asked curiously, What's your name? Fairy is so young. Of course I should call Fairy younger sister. I don't know if Fairy feels younger sister Li or younger sister Macho sounds better. Song Qing-shu looked at her seriously, as if he was really asking for her opinion. Li Macho was finally defeated by his shamelessness. Embarrassed and angry, she spat out, I've long heard that the Golden Snake King is a romantic and elegant man who knows how to win the hearts of girls. Now that I've seen you, you really live up to your reputation. Song Qing-shu casually bowed to the void, as if embarrassed. You flatter me, you flatter me. It's just that the people of Jianghu love me too much. I'm not that good. For example, right now, I can't win Sister Macho's heart. Li Macho glared at him. Don't call me that. You could just call me Taoist Li. That won't do. Taoist Elder Li is such an ordinary form of address. How can it show off my sister's peerless elegance? Song Qing-shu refused seriously. Li Macho took a deep breath and suppressed her impulse to hit him. Then you can call me Fairy. Okay, younger sister Macho. Song Qing-shu readily agreed. Li Macho was so angry that she almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Her icy silver needles had already come out of her sleeves several times. If it weren't for the fact that his kung fu was far better than hers, she would have already taught him a lesson. She couldn't beat him in a fight, and she owed him twice for saving her life. Li Macho could only pretend that she didn't hear the way he addressed her. She changed the topic and asked, Prince Song, I followed you because I wanted to ask you a question. What is your relationship with the ancient tomb sect? Why do you know the ancient tomb sect's kung fu? Song Qing-shu couldn't help but laugh. Didn't I say it in the restaurant that day? I am a son-in-law of the ancient tomb sect. It's not strange that I know the ancient tomb sect's kung fu. Li Macho couldn't help but be shocked. You and little apprentice sister really. She subconsciously wanted to say that there was something going on, but she felt that it would be inappropriate, so she swallowed her words. However, she had a very strange feeling in her heart. After all, she had witnessed the love between Xiao Longnu and Yangguo with her own eyes. When she saw that Yangguo would rather die with Xiao Longnu than escape alone, she was extremely envious and jealous. Who said that I am Xiao Longnu's son-in-law? Song Qing-shu was startled. He subconsciously answered, I am her apprentice sister's son-in-law. Li Macho thought about it. Apprentice sister, Xiao Longnu, wasn't that her? She immediately became angry. Master, please behave yourself. Although my kung fu is not as good as yours, I'm not the kind of person who would allow you to take advantage of me. Song Qingshu immediately understood that she had misunderstood. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. Sister Macho, I didn't make myself clear. Li Macho swept away the horsetail whisk. Her voice became even colder. I said, don't call me that. Song Qingshu shrugged his shoulders. Don't be rash. Wait for me to explain everything to you. Then you will understand that it is not wrong for me to call you Sister Macho. Oh, I'd like to hear the details. Li Macho laughed coldly. Stung by her cold attitude, Song Qingshu could only smile bitterly. Actually, the source of the misunderstanding is that you think that in your generation, the ancient tomb sect only has two disciples, you and Xiaolong Nu. In fact, you have a senior apprentice sister. Senior apprentice sister? Li Macho's eyes became confused. But she quickly recovered. Nonsense. There is no senior apprentice sister. I am the senior apprentice sister. She is the disciple that your master accepted in Liaodong. Song Qingshu hurriedly told her about icy snow. That's what happened. I met your junior apprentice sister not long ago. She has already recognized icy snow. You don't doubt your junior apprentice sister's judgment, do you? Li Macho snorted. She muttered, although Xiaolong Nu is a little naive, as the current sect leader of the ancient tomb sect, it is impossible for her not to recognize someone from the ancient tomb sect. Could it be that I really have a senior apprentice sister? Now you should believe me. According to seniority, you should call me brother-in-law. What's wrong with me calling you Sister Macho? Song Qingshu said with a smile. Pfft. Who wants to call you sister brother-in-law? Li Macho glared at him. Actually, Sister Macho, if you call me brother-in-law a few more times, I might be happy enough to give you the Jade Girl's Heart Sutra. Song Qingshu said, while paying attention to Li Macho's expression. Sure enough, when Li Macho heard about the Jade Women's Heart Sutra, her face immediately changed. After all, this was the cultivation technique that she had always dreamed of. Previously, she had snuck back to the ancient tomb several times in order to snatch the Jade Women's Heart Sutra from Xiaolong Nu. Unfortunately, she had never succeeded. You know the Jade Girl's Heart Sutra? Li Macho looked at Song Qingshu suspiciously. Her face was full of disbelief. The Jade Girl's Heart Sutra from before was actually recorded in the Jade Girl's Heart Sutra. Song Qingshu casually said a few words at the same time. When Li Macho heard it, it was indeed a cultivation technique from the ancient tomb sect. She couldn't help but believe most of it. Why do you know the Jade Girl's Heart Sutra as well? Li Macho couldn't help but feel lost. Song Qingshu knew the Jade Girl's Heart Sutra because he learned it from icy snow. Her master had only accepted 3 disciples in his life, but in the end, she was the only one who didn't know it. Master, you are so cruel, Li Macho shouted. Her face suddenly became extremely pale. Her body suddenly swayed, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. End of this chapter. Chapter 572. Seeing that Li Macho was on the verge of breaking down, Song Qingshu hurriedly said, You're wrong about your master. The reason why she taught Icy Snow the Jade Women's Heart Sutra back then was because she had a secret plan. After she passed away, if you were willing to give up, Icy Snow would teach you the Jade Women's Heart Sutra on her behalf. Really? Li Macho looked at him in disbelief. Of course it's true. Song Qingshu smiled faintly, but he sighed inwardly. Sometimes, lies can help people more than the truth. All these years, I spent so much effort to get the Jade Women's Heart Sutra, but it was all wrong, all wrong. Li Macho's face paled even more, and she spat out another mouthful of blood. Why are you still vomiting? Song Qingshu's figure flashed, and he quickly appeared by her side to support her. He checked her pulse and felt her chaotic breathing. He couldn't help but frown. In my opinion, your ancient tomb sect's martial arts aren't very good. Although your progress is fast, your foundation isn't stable. Just a slight movement of your 7 emotions and 6 desires will cause you to go berserk. Don't you dare insult our ancient tomb sect's martial arts. Li Macho panicked and spat out a 3rd mouthful of blood. Go on, you'll get used to it. Song Qingshu said as he bent down to pick up Li Macho's legs and carried her. "You, what are you doing?" Limacho was shocked and angry. She had always been pure, and most men wouldn't even look at her. She had never been carried by someone like this before. Unfortunately, her breathing was chaotic, and she couldn't summon any chi to resist. She could only use words to protest. "You've gone berserk, so you need to find a quiet place to heal. Moreover, you can't walk on your own in this state. I thought that if I carried you on my back, my hands would inevitably touch your fragrant buttocks, and your chest would inevitably press against my back. This kind of thing, like taking advantage of someone in a perilous situation, a gentleman like me naturally wouldn't do it. After thinking about it, I could only carry you like this in order to avoid taking advantage of you to the greatest extent." Song Qing-shu replied with a deadpan expression. "You." Limacho faintly felt that something was wrong, but she didn't know how to refute. She panicked and fainted. When Limacho woke up and found herself lying on a bed, she couldn't help but turn pale with fright. Her first reaction was to check her clothes, and when she found no traces of being violated, she couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. Only then did she look around, and her gaze just happened to meet Song Qing-shu's faint smile. "Sister Macho, you're making me a little sad. Am I such a shameless person in your heart?" Song Qing-shu couldn't help but feel indignant when he saw that the first thing that came to her mind after waking up was to worry about being violated. Limacho couldn't help but feel embarrassed. She blushed and snorted. "You're not a good person." She couldn't help but think of the days she spent following Song Qing-shu and Mu Wanqing. Every day, she would see Song Qing-shu using all kinds of strange tricks to trick Mu Wanqing. At night, he would lure her to do all kinds of shameful things. Limacho, who was hiding next door, would hear all kinds of sounds that made her blush. In her heart, she naturally thought of Song Qing-shu as a big pervert. Noticing Limacho's expression, Song Qing-shu had a rough idea of what she was thinking. He also felt a little embarrassed. After all, with his martial arts, Limacho had been secretly following him. Even though she had been careful, she couldn't hide it from him. He didn't want to expose her, so he let her follow him. He and Mu Wanqing had been like glue these days, so it was inevitable that Limacho would hear some sounds that would shake her Dao heart. The two of them had their own thoughts, and the room fell into silence. "Hey, how can this be?" Suddenly, Limacho cried out. She had checked her internal energy and found that although her internal injuries had been stabilized, her dantian was still a mess. Unless she didn't use martial arts in the future, once she used her internal energy, she would definitely break the delicate balance in her body. Under the backlash of her internal energy, her martial arts would be crippled, and she would die on the spot. Song Qing-shu sighed. "I said that your ancient tomb sect's internal energy is really not good. Although your cultivation speed is faster than most sects, the ancient tomb sect's martial arts require you to abandon the 7 emotions and 6 desires. But the 7 emotions and 6 desires are human nature. How can they be so easily abandoned? Since ancient times, who knows how many eminent monks have been unable to do this? How can you fairy-like women do it? When the descendants of your ancient tomb sect experience great joy or great sorrow, it is easy to shake the foundation of your cultivation. The higher the ancient tomb's internal energy, the stronger the backlash. That's why your situation is so serious. If I hadn't happened to be next to you and used my internal energy to control the situation in your body, I'm afraid you would have died by now." Limacho's face was pale. She knew the situation in her body very well, and knew that what Song Qing-shu said was true. "Is there a way to save me?" Limacho suddenly asked. She knew that if she couldn't cure her internal injuries, she would be like a useless person in the future. Not to mention the many enemies she had made over the years. Even with her beautiful face, she didn't have the ability to protect herself. When she traveled in Jianghu, she could meet with terrible misfortune at any time. Song Qing-shu hesitated for a moment, then finally shook his head. "There is no way." Limacho had traveled Jianghu for many years and was very experienced. She immediately noticed his moment of hesitation. She couldn't help but frown and said, "Master's martial arts are at the Karma Deva level, and you also know how to call the wind and summon the rain. How can you not have a way to save me? Master has such a close relationship with my senior apprentice sister. You are considered to be my half of the ancient tomb. Why don't you save me? Consider to be your what? Song Qingshu had a smile on his face. Seeing that she suddenly turned her head, he couldn't help but ask for a rebuff. So he continued, there are two ways, but you definitely won't agree to either of them. What's the difference between that and not having one? Seeing that there was indeed a way to save her, Limacho was secretly happy and said, how do you know that I won't agree? Forget it. It's fine if I don't say it, so you don't misunderstand me. Song Qingshu was about to speak, but for some reason, he hesitated for a moment and then refused. You think of a way to save me. Why would I misunderstand you? Limacho said curiously. If you're worried about this, I can swear that after hearing it, I won't blame you. Although she felt that it was a bit strange, her mind was currently thinking about how to recover her internal energy, so she didn't care about anything else. Is that so? Song Qingshu had a strange expression on his face. If that's the case, then I'll tell you. Under Limacho's expectant gaze, Song Qingshu slowly said, the first way to save you is for me to cleanse your muscles and marrow. Although your original internal energy will be scattered, with the nourishment of my internal energy, your internal energy will be stronger than before. But this method has a huge difficulty. Seeing that Song Qingshu was deep in thought, Limacho couldn't help but ask, will this method cost you a lot? Cleansing muscles and marrow had always existed in legends. It was said that the Shaolin Temple had a cleansing marrow scripture, but after so many years, no one had actually learned it. In the end, the people of Jianghu thought that cleansing marrow scripture was only a legend. She didn't think that Song Qingshu would know this method, but with common sense, she knew that to use this legendary method, the person using it must pay a huge price. I don't know how many years of his internal energy will be consumed, and whether he will help me. Limacho was momentarily worried. The price I pay is secondary. The biggest price is actually you. Song Qingshu's expression became more and more strange, as if he was organizing his words to explain to her. What price do I have to pay? Limacho was startled. Song Qingshu hesitated, but still told her the method of dual cultivation. As expected, Limacho's expression changed. Shameless, perverted. I knew it. If I told you, you would definitely misunderstand me. Song Qingshu shrugged. You don't have to be so agitated. This method will greatly damage my internal energy, and in the end, you will be the one to benefit. Even if you are willing, I am not. Nonsense. You have my body, and you say that I am taking advantage of you. Limacho was shocked and angry. She was clearly shocked that the other party was lying through his teeth. That's not right. Song Qingshu shook his head and said seriously, to you, your innocence is of course more valuable than your life, but you also know that I have no lack of women by my side. In order to obtain your body, I have to lose at least half of my internal energy. Do you think I'm taking advantage of you? You are twisting words. Although Limacho said this, she knew that he was speaking the truth. Although she had always been proud of her appearance, there were many women by his side who were not inferior to her. There was indeed no need for him to lose half of his internal energy to obtain her. I don't want this kind of advantage. Do you have any other methods? Limacho gritted her teeth, not wanting to continue this topic. The second method is actually more or less the same. Song Qingshu sighed and continued. It can let you cultivate the Jade Women Heart Sutra. The Jade Women Heart Sutra is the highest martial arts of the ancient tomb sect. It is of the same origin as the internal energy in your body, and it is of a higher level. It should be able to dissolve the chaotic energy in your body. Jade Women Heart Sutra. Okay, we will use this method. Limacho's eyes couldn't help but light up. Previously, in order to obtain this manual, she had snuck back into the ancient tomb several times to fight with Xiao Longnu and her disciple. She had even almost lost her life, but she had never seen a single word of the Jade Women's Heart Manual. She never would have thought that an opportunity would appear so easily in front of her. Could it be that her cultivation deviation this time was a blessing in disguise? Do you know that cultivating the Jade Women Heart Sutra requires two people to cultivate at the same time? Seeing Limacho so excited, Song Qingshu's expression became even more strange. I have heard of it. Limacho nodded. She vaguely remembered that in the past, ancestor grandma and her master seemed to have cultivated it as two people. Since you taught it to me, then we will cultivate together. Song Qingshu had just raised his cup of tea to take a sip, but when he heard her words, he almost spat it out. Looking at you, you definitely don't know that when two people cultivate together, they have to take off all their clothes. What? Limacho suddenly raised her head. You lied to me? Watch your attitude. Right now you're the one begging me to save you. Song Qingshu couldn't help but frown. When cultivating the Jade Women Heart Sutra, the entire body will be filled with heat. You have to choose a place where there is no one around and open your clothes to cultivate. This will cause the heat to immediately disperse without any obstructions, or else it will accumulate in the body. In the worst case, you will become seriously ill. In the worst case, you will lose your life. During this time, the two of you must touch each other's palms and use your internal energy to protect yourself. So what difference does it make if I tell you or not? Limacho's face alternated between red and white. Her face was filled with dissatisfaction. No wonder Xiao Long knew and that brat Yonghua are so affectionate. So the two of them have already reached this step. Song Qingshu's eyebrows jumped, thinking that the two of them had always treated each other with respect. When they cultivated, they chose a dense camellia bush. Even though they were close, they couldn't see each other's bodies. But he wasn't in a hurry to tell Limacho this. He wanted to see what she would choose. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.